All right, this is day 9, Transcript Trial Testimony, Olson, day 9. May the 21st, 2012, 8:31 a.m. Anchorage, Alaska, Monday, May 21st, 2012. Scrocky, Your Honor, we call Gerald Olson. If you'll stand in the witness box here, please. Okay, and if you'll face the court and raise the jury and raise your right hand and be sworn. I do. Thank you. Please be seated. Scrocky. Mr. Olson, if you could please state your name and spell your last name, Gerald Olson, O-L-S-O-N. Mr. Olson, if you could grab the mic, and that's right there in front of you, and just move it, okay? Just give us a test here. Test. All right, Mr. Olson, please tell the jury how old you are. 37. And where were you born? Whitefish, Montana. And can you tell the jury about your upbringing in Whitefish, Montana? I had a good family life, a mother and a father that were together, still married to this day, in a religious home, a conservative religious home. How far did you get in school? 10th grade. You left school at 10th grade? Yes, I did. What did you do after that? I went out on my own and started working. What did you do for employment? Logging, worked for my dad, and then a couple of other logging contractors in the area. Did you ever finish your schooling, Mr. Olson? I didn't finish high school, but I did get a GED. Are you married? Yes, I am. How long have you been married? 17 years now. Have any children? Yes, 4 kids. How old are you kids? The oldest is 17, 15, 13, and 10. Mr. Olson, about how long were you in Montana? Until I was 20 years old. And during that time where you were in Montana, did you ever have occasion to become involved with a militia? Yes, I did. Can you tell the jury about what year that was and what was the name of the militia? That would have been 1992, 93, somewhere in there, and it was the militia of Montana. So how old were you back in 92, 93? 16, 17, 18? Can you tell the jury what kind of activities you have done with the militia of Montana? Who were its members that you knew? The head of it was a guy named John Trotchman. Then there were several other people involved in it, leaders in it, a guy named Paul Stramer, another guy, Cajun James, and we would get together on weekends and go out and train and do different things. Did it involve shooting firearms? Yes, it did. And those guys, Mr. Stramer and Mr. Trotchman, still around? I'm not sure about Trotchman, but I know Paul Stramer is. Okay, did you have occasion to, while you were a member of the militia Montana, to go visit another militia organization? It wasn't a militia, it was a Freeman group. Okay, what were they called? The Freeman? Montana Freeman? Montana Freeman, yes. What was your exposure to that group? They were in the middle of a standoff with the FBI, and we went over there too to support them. Not the whole militia of Montana, but the several of them. Of the guys involved we went over there to support them. Okay, so you went? Yes, I did. And how long did you go? I was there about 3 days. And when you mean you support, can you describe for the jury what you mean by support? There were several groups to show up from around the country, several militia groups, and so support just by being there, just our presence there, I guess, was the support. That's how I viewed the support. At some point, you stayed there for a couple of days. Did you ultimately leave? Yes, I did. Went back home? Went back home, yes. So ultimately, Mr. Olson, did you have occasion to leave Montana? Yes, I did. Where did you end up going? I came up here to Alaska, Ninilchik, Alaska. Can you tell the jury about what year that was? That would have been 93, 94. And where was your wife when you made this move? Did she come with you? Yes, she came with me. We moved up here together with our newborn. Well, he was a year old. Okay, and you ended up going down to Ninilchik? Yes, we did. And what were you doing down in Ninilchik? I was logging and driving trucks and logging. Is part of your employment background dealing with heavy equipment and construction work? Yes, it is. And logging as well? Yeah, logging as well. So you were in Ninilchik? So how long did you stay there to do logging? It was, down at the Kenai Peninsula for a total of about 2 years, 2.5 years. And then you did have occasion to leave Ninilchik and move someplace else? Yes, we did. Where did you go? We came up here to Valley, Wasilla, Palmer area. Okay, and if you could give the jury a time frame of about when that happened? That was probably 97. When you moved up to the valley, what kind of work were you doing? I was trucking, doing over-the-road trucking. Were you working for a company? Was it working for you? I owned my truck, but I was hauling groceries in the wintertime. I hauled groceries from Seattle up to Alaska, and then in the summertime I'd go up to Fairbanks and then haul on the haul road. Did you own any part of the equipment that you were running? Yes, I did. I owned the truck and trailer and a reefer trailer, and I also had a flatbed trailer. Will you tell the jury how it worked? Were you working for a company that did the transport? Which company? Well, I was working for myself, but the company that I hauled their groceries was a company called Vic Hoskins Trucking. And he did the contract to haul, and he had the contract to haul Fred Meyer's groceries up. So how long were you hauling groceries for Vic Hoskins and Fred Meyer? Roughly about 3 years in the wintertime, but about 3 or 4 years. Okay, in connection with, let me rephrase this. Tell the jury about if you're running groceries to Fairbanks, what kind of the run would you make from point A to point B, that type of thing. We would load down in a suburb of Seattle called Puyallup, and then it was third day delivery, so we'd head north with a load and then get it in usually Fairbanks and then stop at the 2 stores in Fairbanks, and a lot of times then come on down to Anchorage and finish out the load in either Anchorage or Soldotna. You were carrying groceries? Yeah, we were. During this time, Mr. Olson, did you carry other things besides groceries up to Alaska? Yeah, there came a point when I did. All right. Why don't you tell the jury what you did? I was transporting drugs up for a criminal organization. My goodness. And how long were you doing that? I did that for about 17 months. All right. You would go to Puyallup? Yeah. Would you go empty or would you go loaded? Sometimes we'd go get a load back after a load of fish, either frozen or fish out of Seward or Kenai, but generally it was empty. So you'd sometimes backhaul, sometimes not. Yes. So with respect to these drugs you talked about, why don't you tell the jury how this worked? I would go load up groceries up, and then go about 5 miles away to another warehouse. Back up to the warehouse, they'd open up the doors and put drugs in there, in the load someplace amongst the groceries, and then they'd close the doors up and seal the load on. And on the grocery loads, those reefer loads, there's a seal that gets put on the truck, on the doors too, so if the seal broke, Fred Meyer knows that somebody got in there and tampered with the load. They'd reseal it with the same number sealed, and I'd head north. Reseal it with the same number sealed, and I'd head north and get into Alaska, depending on where I went. Whether it was Fairbanks or Anchorage, I would meet up with someone about 40 miles out of town, and they would open up the doors, get the product out, and reseal it, and I'd continue on and deliver the groceries. Mr. Traverso, I was wondering if you could direct the witness to speak a little louder. He's got a soft voice. Hold on. Yeah, talk right into the mic there. Okay, how's that? That's better. A little better, yeah. Scrocky. You mentioned there was a seal, yeah. And the people you were working with, they somehow did a way around the seal, yeah. They had other seals with the same numbers. Were you using drugs at this time while you were running drugs up and down the highway? I would once in a while use speed. Tell the jury what you mean by speed. They called it speed or go fast. It kept you up. You could do it and stay up for basically 3 days driving. As part of your compensation for these people who were running the drugs for, did you get any of the product yourself? I would, yes. From time to time they would give me some. What were you getting? Cocaine? How much? Usually an 8 ball, which is 1/4 of an ounce. And what would you do with an 8 ball, Mr. Olson? I would use and share it. I would party with it, my friends of mine, and just, share it and use it. And how were you paid for running these drugs from Washington to Alaska? It was cash money. How much per load? It varied anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000. Do you have a sum of how much you were paid over the course of time that you were running drugs from Washington to Fairbanks? Roughly to $70,000 to $90,000 probably total. Did you pay any taxes on that money, Mr. Olson? No, I did not. Tell the jury, when was the last time you paid your taxes? 1999? You haven't paid taxes since then? No, sir, I haven't. How did you get these drugs through customs, through the border? I had a contact at the border, a border patrol agent that I would pay off and give him cash, and I'd call him from out at Kluane Lake or a couple there, and there used to be a couple of little lodges out along the Alaska Highway between Whitehorse and Beaver Creek. I'd stop in there and make a phone call to Toke, and he'd give me a time when it would be safe to come through. And usually it was within 6 or 7 hours of the phone call. And I would pull up to a border and he'd be working. I assume supervisor of some kind, and he would stamp my paperwork, look it over, and stamp my paperwork, and wave me on through. Was it your understanding that this person at the border was associated with this group you were running the drugs from or for? He wasn't. His association, he wasn't a member, but he obviously had contact with them, yes, of some kind. Did other truckers seem to have contact with this man as well? Yeah, they did. The other guys could use him. At some point in time, you quit doing this. Yes, I did. Tell the jury why you quit doing this. Well, I quit trucking. Was the main reason, and started getting full-time into doing dirt work and excavation work in the valley. You had a company doing that? Yeah, I did. And so you quit running groceries and drugs for this organization, and you went back to the valley to work? Yeah, that's correct. Please tell the jury what kind of work you were doing. Just general dirt work, driveways, foundations, land clearing, house site clearing, septic systems, just general residential dirt work. What's the time frame that you decided to move back to the valley, and do you do that kind of work you're describing? Well, I was always living in the valley, I lived there, but I just quit trucking. That would have been 1999, 98, that time frame. And that continued up to what point? Up to 2004. 2004. And did you acquire any kind of special licenses or certifications during that time frame to do that kind of work? Yeah, I had a general contractor's license, and then I was certified to install septic systems. And you were installing septic systems as part of your business? Yeah, I was. About how many systems over time did you install? A total of probably 60 to 65. Did there come a time with respect to those systems that you installed that they were contacted by law enforcement? Yeah, there did. Please tell the jury about the reasons for that. I was a contractor. I could install a septic system, but it had to be legal certified septic system. You had to file paperwork, get permits to install it. A homeowner could do it on their own without the paperwork if they installed it themselves, but as a contractor I couldn't do that. And so the paperwork fees and everything involved came to about $1,500, and let me interrupt you there. You installed a septic system for the people's homes, correct? Yeah, that's correct. And you mentioned you had 60 to 70 that you did? Yes, I did. And there were some significant issues with some other ones that you did? Yeah. And yeah, there were. And so you were contacted by law enforcement because of those? Yeah, because of the uncertified ones, and then also there's a way to do a septic system using an old car body. It's called a crib system, and those have been done in Alaska for years. A lot of homeowners have done those, but as a contractor, you're not allowed to do that. Okay, and some of these people that you've contracted with, you didn't put a tank in the ground at all. Is that accurate? That's correct. Okay, and and how many of these systems were you being investigated for? There was, I believe it was 4 of them. Okay, and some people didn't know you put cars in the ground, right? That's correct. So you were investigated? Yeah, it was by the DEC. Yeah, by the DEC, yeah. Ultimately, what happened to you with respect to the illegal system? I got charged with 2 felonies and several misdemeanors because of it. All right, did you ultimately end up going to court because of this? Yes, I did. And tell the jury what happened when you went to court. What your disposition was, in other words. I pled no contest to 1 felony and 4 misdemeanors as a result of that. And the court imposed other things along with the fact that you're a felon? Yeah. Yeah, because you defrauded these people? Yeah, that's correct. And you had to do some other things per the court's judgment, right? Yeah, I did. I had to pay restitution, and then I was on probation. Did you do any jail time for the offense, Mr. Olson? Yeah, I did. I did about 60 days total. And how much restitution did you say you owed? The total amount was 50-some thousand that I owed, or that I paid, but I paid about $1,500 at a time. So after it was all said and done, I owed about $3,600. Okay, did you pay any of that money back up to a certain point? Yeah, I did. How much? I paid $150 a month every month, and was the payment amount that I had to pay. And how long was your probationary term? 5 years. Do you recall how many counts you were charged with? I think it was 13, but I'm not for sure on that. Okay, 13 counts. Yeah, 13 counts. And you pled to 1 felony, and then what else? 4 misdemeanors and environmental type crimes. After that, Mr. Olson, did you have occasion to leave the valley? Yeah, we did. We moved up to Fairbanks. And when you went back to Fairbanks, about what time frame was that, and what did you do for employment? That was in 2003, 2004. What were you doing for work? I got out of the dirt work and started logging and trucking. How was your life shaping up at that point, Mr. Olson? It was pretty good. I mean, my wife stuck with me through the whole septic system thing, and I had 4 kids, and it was good. Did that change at some point? Yeah, it did. Tell the jury what happened with respect to the change. I got back into running drugs, transporting drugs, and partying. I got a girlfriend. So you were unfaithful to your wife? Yeah, I was. And did ultimately she do something with respect to that and with your children? Yeah, she left me. Where did she go? Back down to our family in Montana, took the kids and went down to Montana. And you stayed in Fairbanks? Yeah, I did. Please tell the jury that what you were doing while you were in Fairbanks. I had a source for buying drugs in Talkeetna, Alaska, and I was going to Talkeetna and buying them and bringing them back up and selling them in Fairbanks as well as other work. I was still doing the logging and had trucks and that as well. It wasn't just the running the drugs. So you went to Talkeetna to get drugs? Yeah, I would. What kind of drugs were those? That was methamphetamine. Methamphetamine? Yeah. And how did this process work for running the methamphetamine? Did you take your own vehicle? What happened to this? Yes, I would. I'd take my pickup down there or rent a car or sometimes use a big truck and go down and pick them up and drive them back up to Fairbanks. Do you know how much meth you were running back to Fairbanks? Anywhere from 3 to 6 ounces at a time. And how long did you do this? About 12 to 15 months. Probably a year and a half. Ever got caught? No, I didn't. How much were you making per load with this type of operation you had going? I would double my money if I was buying the meth for $2,000 an ounce, or $1,200 an ounce, and then I would make it back and sell it for $24 to $28, and the price I paid for it would vary too, just depending on how much it cost them to get it. So but basically I would double my money. Whatever I paid, I'd double. So you were acting as a wholesaler then? Yeah, I was. Could you please tell the jury how much money you made running the meth from Talkeetna to Fairbanks and wholesaling it? Roughly another $70,000 to $80,000 total over the whole period. Okay, did you pay taxes on that money, Mr. Olson? No, I sure didn't. At some point in time, and if you can tell the jury when that was, did you stop doing this? Yeah, I did. When was that? It would have been around 2008, late 2008. Why did you stop? I finally came to my senses and wanted to get my wife back and my family, and I missed my wife and kids, and I quit what I was doing, my irresponsible lifestyle, and I went to work on getting her back. And this would have been about what year? 2008, like I say, late 2008. Okay, was there something else that you had done illegally during that time frame that you were trying to get your wife back that had already happened? Yeah, there was. I want you to tell the jury about that. I rented a Bobcat skid steer loader. Let me stop you there for a moment. When you say skid steer, what do you mean by that? They're a little piece of construction equipment about the size of a pickup, and it's got a bucket on the front to scoop up material. That's several attachments you can get. You can get forks, just different things to put on the front of them. You rented that for what reason? To do a job? I had some work I needed to do with it. Where did you rent that from? A company here in Wasilla, Totem Equipment Rentals. Okay, so when you rented it, did you have a plan in mind about what you were going to do with that piece of equipment? Yeah, I did. Okay, I want you to tell the jury what you did. I rented it, and I didn't return it, and I turned it in as stolen. You turned it in as stolen? Yeah, where was it? I had it. It was in my possession. Okay, what did you do to cover up the fact that you stole it? I took all the stickers off of it, all the stickers and the name brand stickers, and replaced them with another brand stickers. What kind of brand was the one you stole? It was a Mustang. A Mustang loader, yeah. And then the kind of stickers you put on it said what? Case. Where did you get those? I went to a case dealer and ordered them. Okay, what else did you do to cover up the fact that you stole that piece of equipment? I took off on, there's a VIN number tag that's riveted on someplace, and I took that off and scratched out the VIN number and on the engine itself, and there's another tag for the engine serial tag. So how long did you have the piece of equipment? Right about a year. What was it worth? Somewhere around $60,000 to $65,000. Did that year-long time frame you had the piece of equipment, what did you do with it? I used it in my work. For free? Yeah. And is it true that the law finally caught up with you on this occasion? Yeah, they did. Please tell the jury what happened with respect to that. Somebody I was driving down the road hauling it on a trailer behind my truck, and somebody recognized that it wasn't a case machine, that it was another brand with different stickers. And he was a dealer for the Mustang brand skid steers in Fairbanks, and he knew that there was a stolen one out there, so he called the troopers. Okay, you were stopped? Yeah. A trooper came out of the car and talked to you? Yeah, he did. Tell the jury what you told the trooper when they asked you about the piece of equipment, Mr. Olson. I lied to him and told him that I bought it from a guy in Anchorage. And then what happened with respect to your equipment, or the equipment you stole? The troopers impounded it and kept it, and they took it and impounded it. Okay, did you talk to the trooper about what you were going to do to verify this claim that you had some paperwork? Yeah, I lied to him again. I told him that I would get the receipt. I had the receipt someplace and I would get it for him. And there was no receipt? That's correct, there wasn't. Were you contacted by the troopers again and with respect to the Mustang loader? Yeah, he came out to our house about 3 or 4 days later, wondering if I had gotten the receipt yet. Okay, you met up with the trooper? Yeah, I did. And if you could orient the jury as to the time frame, when was that? That was late August, I believe, of 2009. All right, and the trooper at your front door, he asks questions about it. What did you tell him? I told him that I couldn't find the receipt. And then what happened? And it went on about 2.5 months, and then I was arrested for stealing it. You were indicted, right? Indicted, yeah, and arrested. Affirmative. And did you end up going to jail? Yeah, I did. And where did you end up being sent to jail? I was in Fairbanks for about a week, and then they transferred me down to Palmer. Did you recall the nature of the charges that were filed against you in the indictment? Yeah, it was theft and tampering of evidence tampering. Evidence tampering, yeah. Felonies? Yeah, they were. So how long were you in jail before this was resolved, Mr. Olson? About 5 weeks. Okay, somebody else make a claim against you for deceptive business practices type of charges while you were in jail? Yeah, well, I was in jail before I had gotten arrested. I had taken an order. I have a saw. I had a sawmill and did logging and cut up house logs, 3 side house logs, 4 cabins, and I took an order on those for some house logs for a guy to build a cabin, and took half a deposit, half the money down, and then I was arrested and went to jail, and I couldn't deliver him his product. With respect to that, I was sort of jumping ahead just a little bit here. Those charges were ultimately dismissed? Yeah, they were. Tell the jury why those charges were dismissed. I eventually started working with the troopers, and they went in and talked to the district attorney and the party and that I had taken the money from and didn't give him his logs, and the district attorney all agreed that if I paid the money back that I had taken as a deposit, he would agree to drop the charges, and that's what ultimately happened. So you paid the man his money back? Yeah. As part of that reason of dismissing the charges was because of the cooperation with the troopers? Yeah, that's correct. Could you please tell the jury when you first made an overture of the troopers to begin cooperating with them? When the trooper came out to my house, I talked to me with a receipt. I let him know about that time that I had some contacts with a major drug importer, drug distributor in Alaska, and I could get in and buy drugs for him. And did the trooper take you up on that offer to cooperate or not? No, he snickered and acted like I was telling him a lie. Did there come a time when you obtained some information that you relayed to the troopers and they agreed to take you on as a cooperator? Yeah, when I was in jail, my cellmate and I was in Fairbanks jail for about a day and a half, and the guy came in and they put in the cell with me, and he just gotten arrested for bringing a whole bunch of meth up from Anchorage into Fairbanks, and so I got to talking with him, as you do when you're stuck with somebody in a cell, and he told me he could get me in touch with his contacts at Anchorage and hook me up with buying drugs from his guys who supposedly were a big source. And did you relay the information to somebody? I did. I told my attorney about it. Okay, and ultimately did a trooper meet with you? Yeah, they did. And was an arrangement made between yourself and the troopers for you to begin cooperating with them? Yeah, there was. They told me that they'd work it out. Over time, did that translate into an agreement to work with the FBI? Yeah, it did. Insane. He's working for the FBI now. I want to fold in the fact that the theft of the Bobcat ultimately, what did you end up dealing with or doing in respect to those charges that were filed against you? I pled guilty to theft charge and on the Bobcat and agreed to pay restitution of about $58,000 for the Bobcat. And in terms of jail, how much jail did you do? I got time served, the amount that I had served, which was the 5 weeks. 5 weeks, yeah. And what about probation? And probation for 10 years or until the restitution's paid. Insane. So did you begin to do informant work for the troopers? Yes, I did. And when did that begin? That was late February of 2010. And where did you begin working for them? Down here in Anchorage with the troopers and the DEA. Did you have occasion to work investigations for them pursuant to your agreement with them? Yeah, that's correct. And how many investigations did you work? Total with the troopers and the DEA, there was about 4 of them, I guess, two big ones. Okay, if you could tell the jury that when you became someone who was working with the troopers, you had an agreement, some things you had to do with respect to your cooperation with them, as far as what? Well, you had to do things that you told them you would do in the event you cooperated with them, correct? Yeah, I told them everything I knew as far as contacts that I had, and told them I'd go in and have them do whatever they wanted me to do as far as buying drugs and whatever they needed me to do. And they interviewed you? Yeah, they did. Yes, they did. Did you tell them about all the things you're telling the jury here this morning? Yes, I did. I told them everything. Everything about my past, any criminal information, just everything. All right, we're going to get into your doing drug work for the troopers, right? Yes. Is that part of the conversation with the troopers about all the bad things you've told the jury that you've done? Right. Yes. I want you to tell them and the time frame of what kind of drugs you've used on what occasions in terms of, prior drug use. I did. I tried, obviously, the speed, marijuana, cocaine, a little bit of meth, not much. I wasn't into meth, but I had done it. It's about time for a break, counsel. Yes, sir. We'll reconvene at no later than 20 after. All rise. This matter is in recess for 15 minutes. All rise. His Honor, the Court, this United States District Court is again in session. Please be seated. Bring in the jury. You may continue. Scrocky. Mr. Olson, right at the break, we were talking about you working for the Alaska State Troopers. Yes. With respect to the information that you just told the jury about the conduct of your felony convictions, both of them, and the drug use and everything else, you provided to the troopers as part of an agreement to cooperate? Yes, I did. I told them everything. Okay. You had never been caught prior to that point in time? No. With respect to the drug dealing and the drug transporting and using, no, I had not been caught. When you went to work for the troopers, about how many, investigations did you participate in? For just the troopers or DEA, everyone involved? DEA in association with the troopers? It was 5 or 6, that I was involved in, but to one extent or another. All right, and if I misspeak, correct me, the DEA trooper investigation were here in Anchorage? Some of them there was. There was 2 or 3 up in Fairbanks as well, all right. And before you did these activities for the troopers DEA, did you meet the trooper ahead of time? Yes, I did. I met with 2 or 3 of them generally. Okay, what would they tell you? Tell you about what you were going to be doing? We would go over a plan of how it was going to go down, what was going to happen on that particular day or particular time. And when you would do these investigations with the troopers, you would be meeting people, yes? Yes, I would. What kind of people were you meeting? Drug dealers, gangster types, some of them armed? A couple of them I knew for sure were armed. The rest of them I assume they were. I don't know that for sure. And as part of the work with the troopers in these investigations, you couldn't use drugs, correct? No, I couldn't. Did there come a time where you did? Yes, there was a time I had to. Please explain to the jury about the time and what happened. I was in buying an ounce of meth from a big-time drug dealer. He was bringing in lots and lots of drugs, lots of weight, they call it. And he showed me the product the first meeting I had with him, the first buy, controlled buy, I was going to do from him. And he showed me the product, laid it out there and asked me if I was a cop. I said, no, I'm not a cop. And he said, well, you're going to have to prove it. And he laid out a line of methamphetamine and told me, if you're not a cop, prove it. And so I had to snort a little bit of the meth. Okay, and you did that? Yes, I did. And when you got out of the exchange, what did you do? I drove about 5 miles and then met up with the troopers There was two of them, and turned the product over, the meth over to the trooper, and told them right away that I had to explain to them, told them the story and explained to them the situation. And I said I had to do it. There was no way around it without blowing my cover. The guy had a gun in his waistband and was high on meth, and I wasn't going to take a chance of him freaking out on me. Okay, so you did a line? A little bit of a line. Yeah, did you have a test after? Yeah, I did. A UA test, a urinalysis test? Yes, a P test. The results of that test were positive. Any other positive tests? You were tested during the time you were working with the troopers? Yes, they tested me quite frequently. Any other positive tests? No, none at all. Did they any express to you any concerns or issues about the work you were doing in the terms of quality of work? As far as I don't quite... Did you have any feedback from the troopers that they weren't pleased with the work that you were doing, or you weren't abiding by the terms of your agreement? No, they were happy. In fact, a couple of troopers told me that one, my handler up for the troopers, who I had daily contact with and who was the one I was always working with for me the most part, he told me I was the easiest one and he had ever worked with. Did there come a point in time where the troopers put you up in a place to live? Yeah, they did. They rented an apartment for myself and my family. Do you have an understanding about how much money the troopers paid you in terms of expenses, lodging for you and your family while you were working for them? I believe it was about $3,000. So in terms of a time frame and date range, how long were you working for the troopers/DEA? About 4 months and 4.5 months. Do you have a time frame about when that relationship, I wouldn't say ended, but changed? Late August, I guess, of 2010. There came a time when that changed? Yes, they were. When we were in the middle as part of the troopers working with the troopers, when I told them everything about my past, I told them that the Border Patrol agent, so the investigation started with the FBI and ICE, Immigrations and Customs, Homeland Security people, and so they tapered off with the troopers and DEA because they took a greater importance with the Border Patrol agent. So you were up in Fairbanks at the time? Yes, I was. At some point, did you meet with the FBI again with respect to what you talked about, the activity at the border and the like? Yes, I did. Who would that agent have been? Agent Sutherland? The guy sitting right here at the end of our table? Yes, that's him. When did you first meet Agent Sutherland? It would have been approximately April, May of 2010. And did you have a discussion with him about cooperating with the FBI? Yes, we did. We talked about the Border Patrol case and went through a bunch of my criminal stuff, kind of general overview with him as well as on my past criminal activity. Did you ultimately work an investigation against the border folks you were talking about here, or the person you were talking about here, with respect to your drug running? Yeah, we did. Did the investigation go anywhere? As far as I know, it didn't, but he said it was being handled internally, so we made an attempt and went down there and tried. But there come a point in time where the work you were doing with the FBI shifted from the issues at the border to something else? Yeah, there was. Tell the jury what the time frame that was and what the shift was. It was after the Border Patrol case was wrapping up, my participation in the Border Patrol case anyway, and about the first time on August, I guess of 2010, sometime in there. What was the nature of the area you were going to go work on? What do you mean? Well, you began to do other work for the FBI besides the border person. Okay, yes, I started working on this militia case. And how did that come to pass? When we were wrapping up the Border Patrol case and Agent Sutherland told me it was going to be done and wrapped up, I said, I know that Schaefer Cox has been in the news a lot lately and I could probably get Having in there if you needed any help with that. And the time frame was what again? The first part of August. What year? 2010? 2010? Yeah, it would be 2010. And so and that's how it started? Yeah. Okay, and they took you up on the offer? He didn't right away. He told me he would. He'd get back to me on it. And about how much time transpired before he got back to you? It was about a week or so, I guess, 4 or 5 days. Okay, before we get into the work that you did, I want to talk about a general sense about how the relationship between you and Agent Sutherland worked over the course of the investigation. Okay. All right, you had some guidelines and things that you were operating under, correct? Yes, I was. What were those guidelines? I couldn't lie to him. I had to tell him the truth and be recorded at all times and have a recording device. With respect to sort of a general way you operated with Agent Sutherland, give the jury an idea in terms of mechanics of, say, you pick a particular day, you go meet with him. How does that work? I was in contact with him every day, a lot of times, several times during the day. But if I was going to go to a meeting or go to something, I would generally meet up with him beforehand. A lot of times it was just a phone call and I'd meet up with him. He'd go over the specifics. I'd go to what we were going to do for the day or the time, whenever it was. And then after I was done, I'd meet back up with Agent Sutherland and do a debrief and then turn over the recording device to him. So before you left your meeting with Agent Sutherland, he would give you a recording device? Yes, he would. On how many occasions? Every single occasion. Over the span of what time? The whole investigation. What was it, about 10 months? So you had a recording device for every contact, for the most part? Yeah, every contact. Okay, did you have discussions with him about who you could record and who you could not record? Yeah, we did. At the beginning of it, I could only record Schaefer Cox. That's what your instructions were? Yeah. And did that change over time? Yeah, it did. To include Coleman Barney, Ken Thessing, and I believe that's all. But there might have been others that I don't recall. Okay, in terms of your relationship with Agent Sutherland, you would go to a meeting, have a recording, and a recording device. Yes. You would come back and you mentioned you would speak with him? Yes, we would. We'd do a debrief of everything that went on while I was at the meeting. Usually, where would that debrief occur? All the time, 99% of the time, it was in his vehicle. I'd meet up with him, hop in his vehicle, and we'd drive someplace and go park and sit there and do it.
Do what?
Yeah, I don't want to say. Why don't you just meet him at the office? Because there was a chance of being seen there and blowing the cover, so I very rarely went to the office. He'd sneak me once in a while, but very rarely. Okay, would you provide Agent Sutherland your summary of what happened before listening to the audio recordings? I never did listen to the audio recordings. Well, let me rephrase that. When you met with him, would you tell him what happened first? Yes, I would, yes. Okay. I'd go over everything that happened. All right, what's the first time you listened to the audio recordings that you obtained through the investigation? Just when we started preparing for this trial in April. Not before then? No, not before then at all, no. So to your knowledge, after you came back from a meeting that you had recorded, you would convey to Agent Sutherland, what would he do with that information? He would be sitting there writing it down on a pad, every and all the points I was making. He would scribble them down, and a lot of times I'd be getting ahead of the story, and he'd slow me down. Wait a minute, I got to catch up here with my notes. Did those result in some reports, to your knowledge, that he would be based on your telling him what happened? Yeah, I found out recently, or after the fact, that he every day would compile a report about the day's activity. Okay, with respect to the people you got approval to record, did that include Karen Vernon as well? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it did. When you met with Mr. Cox, Mr. Barney, Mr. Vernon, where were those meetings on average, in a general sense? Where were they held? Everywhere. At their homes, out in public, Ken Thessing's bus, which was his home. He had a camper bus deal. When you say in public, what do you mean by that? Just different events that Schaefer would be putting on, that I would be participating in, and court proceedings for him. Okay, including Mr. Barney's home, yes? Yes, correct. All right, restaurants? Restaurants, yeah, just pretty much everyday life situations and places. When you were meeting up with the defendants in this case, were they armed? Yeah, most of the time they were. I'd see, yeah, most time that I've seen. Probably all the time. And what kind of backup did you have? I had nothing. How close was Agent Sutherland to you when you were doing these meetings? I was hoping he was fairly close, but he obviously wasn't in the same room. But I don't know for sure on that. He told me he'd be in the general area or someone would be. Can you explain to the jury as you understood it what your direction were with respect to these recording devices you had? What were your instructions and what did you do? I would take the device before I'd go to a meeting. Right before, I would do what's called a tag. I would do what's called tag it, give the date and time, who I was meeting with, and then start the recording. Push the recording and then go into the meeting. Was this device that you had something you could turn on and off? Yes, it could be turned on and off. Was it something you could turn on and off in the presence of the defendant without being noticed? No, definitely not. It would have blown cover for sure, turning it on and off. Because you had to do what to it? You had to physically take it and push some small buttons on it. And there was a little hole you had to look in to make sure the light was on or off. So something you could do without being noticed. So not something you could do without being noticed. No, definitely not. Did you ever, Mr. Olson, turn the recorder off in the presence of the defendants? No, sir, I didn't. At the end of the meeting, what were your instructions with respect to the recorder? I would tag it again, give the time and the date, and then I'd say I was terminating this recording and then shut it off. And what would you do with it after that? Turn it over to Agent Sutherland when we had our debrief meeting, swap him out? He would give me a new one. Okay, so you had nothing to do with the new device, old device. You just gave him the device and you took back what he gave you? That's correct. While you were doing this for the FBI, did you receive payment, Mr. Olson? Yes, I did. Can you tell the jury the extent of the payment that you received? The total amount was $77,000.
Holy
And
smokes.
freaking insane. Can you break down for the jury so they know what that amount comprised of? $17,000 of it was for living expenses, rent because we were renting an apartment, the same apartment that the troopers had put us up in. The FBI started paying for, and the gas money, electric bills, just the general living expenses, and $60,000 of it was at the end when I had to move. I had to move my family out of the state. The $60,000 was to move my family out for a family of 6. And freaking insane that a sleazeball like this gets $60,000 of government money. Actually, he got more than that. He got how much? He got $77,000 to rat out a good guy like Schaefer. Who made the decision to move you out of the state? Agent Sutherland did. So $60,000 of that was for moving expenses? Yes, that's correct. And the rest was for what type of activity? Just general living expenses, I'd say. In terms of your work in this case, what is your understanding as to any other monetary compensation down the road? There's no guarantee. Agent Sutherland, had never promised me anything, but I am hoping for it to get paid for my services. With respect to the devices that we were talking about, the recording devices, we were talking about audio recorders? Yes, they were. Oh, on other occasions, were there different types of recorders besides audio recorders? Yeah, there were a few times I wore a video recorder as well. And similarly, you mentioned that Agent Sutherland was your point of contact. Were there other agents you had occasion to work with on this investigation? Yes, several of them. And not all in Fairbanks? No. Not all of them were in Fairbanks, but a lot of them had come up from different parts of the country, Anchorage or whatever. Did you have an occasion to meet some here in Anchorage as well? Yes, I did. Yes, there were a few here. Okay, give me just a second. Okay. As to these recorders, Mr. Olson, I apologize if I've already asked this question. Were there times where you didn't hit the record button before going in? No, I hit it every time. I started the recording every meeting. Okay, and you didn't turn it off during the meetings? Absolutely not. Do you know Schaefer Cox? Yes, I do. Is he here in court today? Yes, he is. Do you know Coleman Barney? Yes, I do. Is he in court today? Yes, he is. Do you know Lonnie Vernon? Yes, I do. Is he here in court today? He sure is. Where is he sitting? Right over there at the end of the desk over there. You can see Mr. Barney right behind the binder and the computer terminal? Yes, I can. Okay, and when did you first become aware of Schaefer Cox? I'm not saying per the case, you yourself personally, when did you become aware of him? I heard of him back when he was running for state legislature and different things. He had going on in Fairbanks. Did you have an occasion to see him in person? One time I did, yes, in the fall of 2009, I guess it was. Tell the jury about the circumstances of that meeting in the fall of 2009. There was a fundraiser for a lady that was running for borough mayor in Fairbanks. Tammy Wilson was her name. And as part of the fundraiser, Schaefer was doing a speaking engagement. So I met him at that function. Why did you go to that function? My wife and I went there because we liked Tammy Wilson and just went there to support her. Was it because Mr. Cox was there? No, I didn't know for sure he was going to be there. And was he there? And he was there? Yeah, he was there. Did the two of them speak? Yes, they did. Do you recall what Mr. Cox talked about? Just a bunch of Second Amendment stuff, gun stuff, sheriff, how the troopers are a flawed, trooper system is a flawed system, county sheriffs are better, that type of stuff. Was there any kind of display set up for Mr. Cox there? He had some magazines, pamphlets, or whatever on the back in the back where Tammy Wilson had her table set up, and Interior Alaska Conservative Coalition had a couple of tables set up, and there was several tables set up, and Schaefer had material there as well. Okay, did you have occasion to personally meet him at that meeting? Briefly, yes. And what was the context of that? Just exchanged names, shook his hand. Did you have occasion to hear him over the airways before you became involved with the FBI? Yes, I'd hear him on KFAR radio, which is a talk radio program, different talk radio programs there in Fairbanks he'd be on. Okay, at this meeting with Mr. Cox in the fall of 2009, you met him just like an exchange of pleasantries of type of thing? Yeah, just real brief, Hi, how you doing? Shake his hand, just a brief, in passing of kind. Did you get anything from him in that meeting in terms of contacting him in the future? I got his phone number. How did you get that? He was giving it out as part of the Liberty Bell network, Liberty Bell deal that he had going. Can you explain to the jury your understanding of what Liberty Bell system was? It was a phone that he kept on him, and if anybody had any trouble with the troopers or any law enforcement, they could call his number, his phone number, and he would send out an alert to everybody else on the network to come and observe what was going on with the person who was having an issue with the law enforcement, where they got stopped or whatever was going on with the law enforcement. So you got his phone number from that? Yeah, I did. Did you keep the phone number? No, I didn't. Well, we got a little card with it on it, and we probably had it somewhere. Okay, so you got a card with his phone number on it. Yes, I did. Were there other groups that you knew Mr. Cox to be associated with in the Fairbanks area prior to your contact with the FBI? I knew he was involved with his militia group, and then also the IACC, Interior Alaska Conservative Coalition, and Liberty Bell and Second Amendment Task Force was another group he was talking about on the radio all the time. Okay, and what about the time frame was it you spoke to Agent Sutherland about Mr. Cox, that you could do some work for him on Mr. Cox? The first part of August there in 2010, the first week or two in August, I believe. All right, so Mr. Olson, what was your if you get what I mean with what was your if you get what I mean with respect to Mr. Cox? Being involved in the militia down in Montana when I was younger, I knew a guy that had actually came to Alaska with him, a guy named Paul Stramer, who's big in the militia movement down in the States, and I knew from him from years ago from my old militia days. So I knew I could make a call to him and he would vouch for me. So you relayed that to Agent Sutherland? Yes, I did. Were you tasked to do something by Agent Sutherland? Yes, after I initially told him, then a week or so, 5 or 6 days later, he came, got a hold of me, and we placed a call to Paul Stramer. All right. Now in a totality sense, Mr. Olson, you made a lot of recordings during the course of this investigation, correct? Yeah, there was. So I knew I could make a call to him and he would vouch for me. So you relayed that to Agent Sutherland? Yes, I did. Were you tasked to do something by Agent Sutherland? Yes, after I initially told him, then a week or so, 5 or 6 days, he came, got a hold of me, and we were placed a call to Paul Stramer. All right. Now in a totality sense, Mr. Olson, you made a lot of recordings during the course of this investigation, correct? Yes, there was. Over 100 hours? Yes. Okay, we're not playing all those 100 hours. We're playing about 5. And you've listened to all those? Yes, I have. Okay, and we'll get to the remainder of that in a few minutes, okay? And you say things that you did, like called Paul Stramer. Did you ever do anything as to this investigation without being directed by Agent Sutherland? No, not at all. It was always at his direction, or he'd tell me to do it. In terms of your interaction with the defendants, if you're heard asking for something specific to the investigation from any of the three defendants. If you're heard asking about it, why are you asking about a specific thing? I don't understand what you're saying. Well, if you're asking or suggesting or doing things with respect to the investigation, were those on your own or did you do that per direction from Agent Sutherland? Okay. No, that was definitely per direction from Agent Sutherland. He would tell me to do things, and through the course of the investigation, that would change. He would have specific things. We were specific information or different things he was wanting to get. So then he would have me ask stuff about that and try to get that information. Similarly, were there things that Agent Sutherland told you not to do? Yes, there was. You would meet ahead of time and he would say, don't do this? Yes, he would. So did you call Paul Stramer? Yes, we did. And who is Paul Stramer again? He doesn't have a militia as far as I know anymore, but he's a militia supporter. He has several websites and sells Tea Party militia type materials, videos, DVDs, and that type of stuff. So you called him? Yes, we did. What did you tell him? I told him I was looking to get back in the militia and I'm in Fairbanks, Alaska now and wondering if he knew of anybody and knew of any militias up here. Were you told information that he did? Yes, he did. He right away told me about Schaefer Cox. How did you leave the conversation with Mr. Stramer? It was pleasant. He was going to get in touch with him, Schaefer, and let him know that I was going to be getting in contact with him. So you asked him to do that? Yes. Did you ultimately contact Mr. Cox? Yes, we did. And the first phone call, did you make voice contact with him? No, it went to his voicemail. And then subsequently, did you get a call back from him at some point or make contact with him? Yes, I did. Do you recall a general time frame of that contact? End of August, the 20th, 22nd, sometime around there of August 2010. And did he call you back or did you make contact with him? I don't recall the specifics. I think he called me back. But because of the way we did the recordings, if I was getting an incoming call, a lot of times I'd let it go, turn the recording device on, so the phone recording device tag it, and then call right back. So I think he called, then I called right back. Okay, but you had a chat with him? Yes, I did. Nonetheless, what did you guys talk about? I told him that I was interested in joining up with his militia and wanted to join up and seeing if he was taking new members. What did he say about that? He said that yes, in fact, he was. In fact, they were having a commissioning in a few days, and I was welcome to that. And if I liked it, I could get commissioned in and sworn in. Okay, was there a point of contact he gave you with respect to his militia? Yes, he told me he would have Major Barney get in contact with me. Did he do that? Yes, I got a phone call and some emails from Major Barney Coleman Barney. Mr. Barney called you back? Yes, he did. He mentions receiving an email. Yes, I did. From who? From Coleman Barney. Could we have 470, please? Could we have the lights, Madam Clerk? Mr. Olson on your screen there, and I don't want you to talk about the details. We have Exhibit 470. Do you see that item? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Do you recognize it? That's the email. Okay, and that's from Mr. Barney, correct? Yes, it is. Can we have the next page, please? Do you recall that as being part of an email as well? Yes, it was. That was an attachment. All right. And is there one other page? The third page, do you recall as being part of the attachment? Yes, it was. We offer Exhibit 470. No objection times 3. 470 admitted. Can you enlarge the text, Mr. Scrocky? So, Mr. Olson, your choice. Can you look at the monitor or here, or the screen to your left, my left? Do you have Exhibit 470? Is this the email you were speaking about? Yes, it is. You received that from who? Coleman Barney, Mammoth Electric. And the date? August 9th of 2010. And this email address over here, I'm circling in blue, that's not blacked out on the right-hand side. Whose email address is that? That's my email, my old email address. And the subject header, can you read that for us? It says barbecue for AP for the APM, Alaska Peacemaker Militia. And you were provided some directions, correct? Yes, directions to Coleman Barney's house. All right. Next page, please. And this page appears to be something from Wikipedia, yes? It says at the top up there? Yes, it does. Next page, please. So Mr. Barney's email provided you a link with the militia in the News Miner article? The News Miner story, yes. Did you have occasion to read that? Yeah, I clicked on the link and read the article. Okay, can you read the paragraph here I've highlighted there in blue? If you are to defend your individual liberty effectively these days, you will need others who are willing and able to come to your aid and join with you in a necessary use of force. This will be far easier to do if we are all having common skill at arms and some other basic combat techniques. And read the next paragraph. The objective of training is to give regular people the basic combat skills and organizational structure needed to work together to defeat an aggressor who has threatened one or all of us. Underneath that is listed a confession or an oath. Do you see that? Yes, I do. Do you have occasion to cite that oath or recite the oath yourself, Mr. Olson? Yes, I had to when I was commissioned into the militia. So you attended the commissioning ceremony? Yes, I did. Can we have 488, please? Mr. Olson, do you see what we've marked in evidence as 488? Yes, I do. Do you recognize the individuals in that photo? Yes, I do. And is that photo from the link in the newspaper article? Yes, it was. The one they emailed me. Can you identify from this? Let's go up to the screen so the jury can see from the left to the right. Can you identify who those people are? I can identify 3 of them, and one I've seen him. I don't remember his name. So which one is that? The one on the far left? This individual here? Yes. You can't identify him, but you've seen him? I've seen him around the militia functions, yeah. How about the person wearing the glasses? That's Ken Thessing. The person there, Schaefer Cox, and there, Coleman Barney. Can I have 1 through 40 if you bring up the lights, please, Denali? Mr. Olson, if you could examine those discs that were placed in front of you, marked as Exhibit 1 through 40, all done? Yeah. Those have been reviewed by you? Yeah, they have. Initialized and dated on the date of review? Yeah. You looked at those or looked at those? You've listened to the content of those discs and also reviewed the transcripts that were provided in association with those discs? Yeah, that's correct. Are they accurate in transcripts? Are they accurate, the transcripts that is? Yes, they are. And those discs reflect conversations that you recorded between yourself, Schaefer Cox, Coleman Barney, Lonnie Vernon on occasion? Yes. Mike Thessing? Ken Thessing? Yes. From the period of August 2010 through March of 2011, that's correct. Some of those contain an audio as well as video footage. Yes, they do. We offer Exhibits 1 through 40. No objection, no objection. Miss Hayden, Your Honor, we would object to the ones that contain the words of Karen Vernon. Your microphone, please. I'm sorry. We would object to the ones that contain speech from Karen Vernon as hearsay. The court, Exhibits 1 through 40 may be admitted. Plaintiff, Exhibits 1 through 40, side converse. Your Honor, we need to distribute the books and, Madam Clerk, the headsets. Mr. Olson, Exhibit number 1 contains an audio recording. Okay. Can you tell the jury about the nature of that recording? How you got there? What happened when you got there? This is a recording for the commissioning when I showed up to do got commissioned into the militia. All right, we'll get to the recording in a second, so let's get some background. Okay, so the commissioning ceremony was there. Is it at Coleman Barney's house? Could you please tell the jury who was there at the commissioning ceremony? Lonnie and Karen Vernon, Coleman Barney and his wife and family, Schaefer Cox, his wife and family, and then several other militia members, and then some new ones that they were recruiting, some new recruits. Okay, wives and children? Yes, wives and children of several of the other militia recruit guys, but not all of their wives and kids. Okay, kind of potluck. I want you to think what a sleazeball, scumbucket, narc, rat fink, government informant goes to a family event at someone's home with family members and children to rat out his fellow citizen who's not even planning on doing anything wrong anyway, just starting a constitution.
Setting him up, not ratting him out.
Well, yeah, that's exactly. Okay, yeah. He's setting them up. He's provoking him to violence. It's even worse, right? Insane. Going to his home and taking an oath that he knows he doesn't mean. Just total sleazebag. And he's going to set him up and end up putting him in prison for 26 years on something he didn't even plan on doing. Yeah, it was a barbecue. And so in terms of militia members or individuals who might have been interested, how many men were there? Probably 8 to 12, 8 to 10. 8 to 10? Yeah. And if you know how many of those were new recruits, well, that's what I mean, 8 to 10 new recruits. Oh, 8 to 10 new recruits. Yeah, recruits. And then probably 6 to 8 existing militia members. So you had those existing members. Do you know of any names of some of the existing militia members who were there? Yeah. There was this guy named Les Serby. Ken Thessing was there, and those who are only 2 that I can recall right now off the top of my head. And how long did this meeting last? It was 2.5 to 3 hours probably. And who did Mr. Cox speak? Yes, he did. And who else spoke during the ceremony? Mr. Cox did, Coleman Barney did, and then the guys who were being sworn in, being commissioned, joining up, and they had to give a little speech as part of their oath. When you read and took the oath, did you give a speech? Yes, I did. Did Mr. Cox make a speech? Yes, he did. We're going to hear an exhibit number 1. Yes. That's what this is? All right. Scrocky, let's give it a shot and see how it yes, sir. Just a second. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you again that when you hear these or see a recording, that is the evidence. The transcript that has been given to you is provided to help you identify the speakers and understand what is and what they say. But the recording is the evidence, not the transcript. And if you hear anything different on these transcripts from what you, or if you see something different on the transcripts than what you hear on the recording, what you hear is controlling, and the transcripts will not be available during the deliberations. So pay close attention. Scrocky, all set. Go ahead. Scrocky, can we stop it there, please? End of audio. Mr. Olson, with respect to this duty to disobey, how many people were listening to Mr. Cox? Probably 16, 17, 18, somewhere in there. Was this a prepared speech or something he was given impromptu? I believe it was prepared, but he was. And was he reading it or was he not reading it? To be honest with you, I don't recall whether he was reading from a script or if it was just talking. I don't remember. All right. Were there other people given an opportunity to speak after this? Yes, there were. All right. Let's keep going. Play the audio. Mr. Olson, this guy who just said these crazy people in the courtroom were shaking in their boots. Yes, who was that? Miss Zerby, Les Zerby. Can you describe for the jury who Mr. Zerby is? He was a lieutenant colonel, I guess right under Schaefer in the militia, in the command structure. And what does he look like? An older gentleman? I don't know, probably 60, 65 years old, somewhere in there. Were Mr. Barney and Mr. Vernon present during the speech? Yes, they were. Karen Vernon too? Yeah, Karen, there was also, yeah. Scrocky, can we have 71, 72? While you were there at the commissioning ceremony, Mr. Olson, did you purchase anything? Yes, I did, this shirt. Plaintiff's Exhibit 71. And were you given anything? Yeah, I was given some of these manuals, 72. Okay, a manual, all right. We offer 71 and 72. No objection may be admitted. Let's go to 71, which is the shirt. Yeah, okay. Could you hold that up for the jury so that we can see it? Is there a patch on the left shoulder? Yeah, there's. Yeah, yes, there is. What's it say? It says, defend all, Unit 1, aggress none. Okay, and how did you come into possession of that shirt? I bought it at the commissioning after I got commissioned into the militia. And what did that cost? It was $100. On the collar I can see from there's some metallic objects. Yes, there are. And you were commissioned into the militia on that day? Yes, I was. And what was the rank you received? I guess private, entry level. How many rivets did you get? At the time there was just one. Just one rivet. Yeah. So it seems there's more than one there now. Yeah, there is. Okay. I'll get to that in a little while. Exhibit 72. What's the document there, sir? That's the manual, the training manual. What's it say on the cover? It says defend all, aggress none, Alaska Peacemakers, Militia, No Fluff Training Manual.
Aggress none?
Aggress none, that's what it says. Sounds
What
like
does that mean?
It means don't be aggressive towards anybody and defend everybody. Sounds like a real dangerous militia. It's called the Alaska Peacemakers Militia. When you got the pamphlet and you left the commissioning ceremony, what did you do with it? I turned it over to Agent Sutherland. Did you ever wear the shirt again? Yeah, I did on several occasions. So you kept the shirt, yeah. Mr. Cox kept speaking during the commissioning ceremony. Yes, he did. Concerning statutes, yeah. That's reflected in Exhibit I02, as well as discussions about the militia objectives. Is that correct? Yeah, that's correct. Scrocky, let's go to I02 or 102. Play the audio. Mr. Olson, you indicated that Mr. Vernon and his wife Karen were there. Yeah, they were. Did you have occasion to see Mr. Vernon or Mr. Vernon during the commissioning ceremony or afterwards? Yeah, during it. Did he bring something out to show members of the militia? Yeah, he did. Tell the jury what he did and the circumstances of which you observed. He had just rigged up or got some new rigging for his gun, assault rifle that he had, and he brought it out and was showing everybody. And how was he dressed? He was in his militia uniform wearing a pistol on him and a handgun. Did you see where did he pull his firearm from the rifle you spoke about? It was in the back seat of his pickup. Okay, how was it contained or held? In a case, in a black case, a gun case? Scrocky, Madam Clerk, if we can have the lights, please. This is Exhibit 312, Mr. Olson. Do you see the firearm depicted in that photograph? Yes, I do. Is that what you observed there at the commissioning ceremony being displayed by Mr. Vernon? Yes, it was. That's the gun. Did you have the occasion to see the firearm later in the connection with Mr. Vernon? Yes, there was. Where at? Out at the house. Sometime down the road? Yeah, February, March time frame. Mr. Olson, Scrocky, if we could have the lights, Madam's clerk, thank you for a few minutes. Mr. Olson, was there 35 members of that militia present at the commissioning ceremony? No, there wasn't. How many actual members of the militia were there? 8 to 10 of existing members besides the ones that were signing up, looking to sign up. As to the existing members, that would include Mr. Cox? Yeah, it was. Mr. Barney, yeah. Mr. Vernon, yeah. Les Serby, yeah. Anybody else you can recall? Ken Thessing and a couple of other guys. I don't recall their names. You ever see those couple of other guys again after this commissioning ceremony? One of them I did at another point. The other ones you didn't? The other ones I didn't, not that I recall anyway. Were those other individuals commissioned as well? Did they take the oath? The new ones, you mean? Yeah, a few of them did. Some of them didn't, but there were probably 3 or 4 of them that did. After the commissioning ceremony, you had a recorder? Yeah, I did. So in this instance, what did you do with that recorder when you got home? When you got done? When I got done, I met up with Agent Sutherland and turned it over to him. Okay, at some point there was talk of training for the militia members at this commissioning ceremony. Yeah, there was. And what kind of talk was that? They were going to have training mission up in Chena Hot Springs Road at a gun range they had. Did you go to that training? No, I did not. Tell the jury why you didn't go. Since I was a convicted felon, I couldn't pack a gun, and there was going to be shooting and guns involved. And I would have had to bring one or shoot one at least. And Agent Sutherland couldn't get the clearance to allow me to do that. Okay, you were still on state probation? No, I'd been taken off probation to work this with law enforcement. But either way, he couldn't get clearance for you? No, he couldn't, no. How was this aspect of the training communicated to you? Through Schaefer and Coleman? But by what mechanism? I think it was, I don't recall for sure. It was either a text or an email. I don't know. It came to my phone, and I don't remember because my emails come to my phone. So I don't remember if it was an email or text. Bear with me, Mr. Olson. Do you see Exhibit 471 there on the screen? Yeah, I do. Do you recognize that document? Yeah, I sure do. Was it in reference to the training you were just speaking about? Yes, it is. From Mr. Barney? Yeah, it's an email from Mr. Barney. The government offers Exhibit 471. No objection may be admitted. Could we have the last denali? Can you enlarge it for us? The date of this email, Mr. Olson, August 23rd, 2010. And the sender, Coleman Barney, and your email address. It is Alaska Cabins. Yeah, it is. And it was also sent to some other individuals. Do you see the names? Yeah, I do. Can you read the content of that email, please? It says, Alaska Peacemaker Militia Training APM Information Seminar for those coming just to see what it's all about. Time 6 p.m. Wednesday, 25th, in 2 days. Location 8.1 mile, Chanas Hot Springs Road. Turn right onto Starlight. Follow it all the way down, and you'll find us. Bring a friend or several friends. These get-togethers are an opportunity for us to bring others in, or at least give them an understanding of what we stand for. For those who commissioned last time, wear your uniform, bring your gun, and minimum of 25 rounds of ammo. If you don't have a gun yet, just bring some money for ammo. We have some extra guns there with the ammo. For those who are just coming to hear what we are about, what we are, and what we stand for, just bring yourself and a friend if you'd like, and an open mind. Any questions, give me a call, Coleman Barney, 978-1471. Scrocky. If we could have the lights, please. Throughout the course of your work with the FBI, Mr. Olson, in what mechanism did you communicate with the defendants in this case? Telephone, email, text? Okay, can we have 799? Would you take that out of the sleeve, Mr. Olson, and take a look at it? Have you seen that before in connection with your preparation for testimony in this case? Yes, I have. There are a number of pages to that exhibit? Yeah, it looks like 9 pages. Okay, do those not concern texts between yourself and Schaefer? Yeah, correct. All those pages? Yeah, they're all Schaefer. Okay. And they were made in connection with this investigation and the time frame we were talking about earlier, the August up through March 10th? Yeah, that's correct. Scrocky, we offer Exhibit 799. No objection. 799 may be admitted. Lights, please. It's about lunchtime. Let's take a break before we start that. We'll reconvene at 1:30, folks. Please enjoy your lunch hour. Don't discuss the case. And follow my instructions about recesses. So we'll reconvene at 1:30. The clerk, all rise. Please turn off your headsets, everybody. The matter is in recess until 1:30.
All rise. His honor, the court. This United States District Court is again in session. Please be seated. Anything preliminary? Okay. Traversal, I have one matter, Your Honor. Okay, okay. If I may. Your microphone, please. Thank you. Traversal. When I proposed my jury instructions at docket 324, page 2 of 11, I proposed the First Amendment instruction. We're getting into a lot of speeches of Mr. Cox, statements by Mr. Cox, and there will be statements of Mr. Coleman Barney as well as Mr. Lonnie Vernon. And I think the jury needs to be informed where the line is, that which is speech within the First Amendment and speech outside of it. And the instruction that I propose is very short, but I think it's right to point. It comes from the U.S. Supreme Court, and I'd like the court to instruct the jury accordingly. Scrocky, briefly, Your Honor, I don't think it's necessary to instruct them at this point. Moreover, we're moving away from speeches, so to speak, into conversations. Additionally, the matter of which Mr. Cox spoke are directly relevant to his beliefs, motives, and actual instructing his militia to follow those beliefs, and not in accord with the law. So we don't think an instruction at this stage is appropriate whatsoever. The court. Well, you know when to instruct the jury about evidence during the course of a trial is a matter of, well, it's partly a matter of law, but also there's some art to it. In this circumstance, I don't think it's appropriate at this time. I gave them a general instruction at the beginning that in part covers this sort of thing. We'll instruct them at the end, but I just don't think it, under these circumstances, that it makes sense to call attention to particular things and tell the jury what to do or not to do about those things as we go along. It's with the amount of words of the defendants that we're going to be before the jury, it calls for a general instruction at the end of the trial rather than individual instructions as we go along, in my opinion. So the request is denied. I will take a look at the particular instruction further and think about it more, but don't think that that's appropriate at this point. We also get into a deal here where some of this information can be taken in a lot of different ways. Traversal, correct. And certain insofar as it's an exercise of free speech, that's one thing. On the other hand, so far as it proves motive for alleged crimes, then it's something else, and it can be both. It provides a motive for alleged crimes, then it's something else, and it can be both. But, yeah, anyway, go ahead, Mr. Traverso. Well, you know, there's a very delicate word that the Supreme Court has conveyed about speech. The last I heard, conversation is part of speech, Your Honor. But the court has made it very clear that the word eminent is very important, and I don't know if that is a term of art that the jury is going to pick on very quickly without some sort of instruction. They're going to hear all this stuff, and you can be drawing conclusions, even though the court has made it very clear that in its instruction earlier not to jump to conclusions, listen to all the evidence. But when they're listening to stuff, they may just go ahead as humans to draw an inference that is negative because they don't know what crossing a line is, imminent, and something that isn't. Well, I appreciate your argument. I don't think it's appropriate to instruct at this time. All right. Okay, bring in the jury. Okay, you know, I've been involved in a lot of courthouse design over the last many years, and I think we don't do right by juries by giving you a place to work. And if I ever have occasion to design another courthouse, I'm going to have a desk in front of the jury for them to write on, but it's too late for you folks. Now, someone asked me to talk to you about it next week, and Memorial Day is Monday. That's not a court day, so we'll have a long weekend. And on Wednesday of that day, we're going to adjust court hours and may start early and go through the lunch hour, but we're going to stop by 1 p.m. on the 30th of May. That's, I believe, Wednesday, and we'll be out of court Friday again, like we'll be instead 4-day week. It'll be a 3-day week. With 1 day, we'll go through the noon hour, then quit at one order to accommodate some other problems. So do you get the Memorial Day off? Okay, go. Scrocky. Mr. Olson, we listened to a couple of clips that you made in your undercover capacity at the commissioning ceremony in August of 2010 or 2010. 2010, yes, 2010, yes. And with respect to that, what we heard in these other audio exhibits we're going to hear, these aren't the full amount of what occurred, correct? That's correct. I mean, that meeting the commissioning ceremony was how long? It was close to 3 hours in total. And with regard to the other audio exhibits we're going to hear, those are not all exhibits in their entirety either. That's correct. Yes, before we broke at the noon hour, we were looking at the beginning of Exhibit 799. Could we have the lights to Nolly? Mr. Olson, there's some text traffic in October, November with respect to Exhibit 799. Do you see that there? Yes, I do. There's one up at the top I'm circling where it says pie and cream and ice cream. Yes. Is that something you would frequently see with Mr. Cox? Yeah, I'd get a text like that. There was probably 3 or 4 of them in the time period. All right, in respect to the one listed for November 19th, you see that there? Yes, I do. Could you read that, please? It says, "Hi, Shaver, there's no way I'm going to be able to make it tonight. I definitely want to help on Tuesday, so let me know when the next meeting is, and I need to do. Thanks, JR." So that's the date. So that's the date of that text you sent to him. Is that what date? Is that, or the sent date? It must have been on the right hand side. The 19th or 20th, 11/20 of 2010. Okay. Before we get into that little more detail, can you tell the jury what transpired between August, October, November time frame? Though there was, from one of my previous cases, one of those drug cases, it was coming up. There was some hearings, and it was or someone getting sentenced on it, or something. I'm not real sure. But my name was going to be out, or could potentially be out in the media, so they kind of slowed back on what I was doing. Things had calmed down for a month or so, 6-week period between the commissioning and these texts. So was that slowing down? Was that at the direction of Agent Sutherland? Yes, it was, yes. All right. With respect to this meeting, that was the subject of this text or whatever, you're not going to be able to make it tonight. Do you recall what you were talking about? It was a meeting Schaefer was going to have up at his house with a bunch of sovereign citizens from Anchorage that were coming up. Several of them were coming up to plan a meeting. I guess they were going to do a KJNP appearance or TV appearance. Okay, and you were inquired about that? Yeah, that's what I was inquiring here. Scrocky, can we have the lights on, please? And did you have a conversation with Mr. Cox about that meeting? Yeah, we did. Okay, what was the subject of the conversation? What were you guys talking about? Of the actual meeting conversation? Yeah, what was the meeting going to be about? It was going to be about planning for the TV appearance. We needed a couple of teams, an exit team, a security team, different teams to go in and guard him. And while he was the judge, they were bringing up a common law judge from Anchorage, and they needed security for the TV appearances. Okay, so you didn't make this one meeting as referenced in the text? No, I didn't. Why was that? Because Agent Sutherland held me back on it, didn't send me on it. Did you subsequently attend a meeting with Mr. Cox and others about the KJNP security detail? Yes, I did, up at Shaver's house. Okay, and do you recall a relative time frame to when the meeting occurred? It was right around the text, late November. Okay, when you attended the meeting at Next House, who was there? There was a guy, Dave Bartles, Judge Bartles, they called him, another guy, Roner. I believe the first name is David Roner from Anchorage. These guys are all from Anchorage. A guy named Jeremy Baker, and then a couple of other ladies and other people from down here in Anchorage, and then Schaefer, Cox, and myself. What was the subject of the meeting? Just overall planning for this appearance, for this TV appearance that was going to be had. Okay. Was that meeting recorded by you? Yes, it was. And is this a segment of that meeting reflected in Exhibit 203? Yeah, it is. If we could play 203, audio played. Ladies and gentlemen, excuse me. Scrocky, stop. Court, I'm not going to instruct you on each of these clips. They're all the same, and I've told you about the transcripts just being to assist you in evidence as the audio. So you here goes for all of these clips. Go ahead. Start it over. They play an audio clip. Scrocky. Mr. Olson, with respect to that conversation, there seemed to be a couple of things going on. A security detail and something involving a courthouse. Yes, an exit crew for the courthouse. Can you tell the jury what your understanding of what was going to happen with respect to those two events? There was going to be a court hearing, and he wanted an exit crew to go in with him to the courtroom hearing, and show up in court and guard him as he came out of court, gather around and guard him. And from court, was there anything going to happen after that? As far as what? Well, he was going someplace after court. I don't recall. Okay. I can probably, if I look at 1023, I could probably be reminded, but okay if we need to, but okay. I want to go back for a second. Then, with respect to the security detail, there was a discussion about killing federal law enforcement, yes. And being prepared to do that, yes. He said, you need to be prepared to kill them and stomp them through the ice if you have to. Okay, if certain conditions were met, yes. Did you report that back to Agent Sutherland? Yes, I did. Did you report back the contents of this meeting and what occurred at this meeting back to Agent Sutherland? Yes, I did. I met with him afterwards and did a debrief. Mr. Cox mentioned that he had purchased a whole bunch of hornet's nest, yes, and CS gas, CS grenades. I think is what he said. Did you have occasion to see a CS grenade in some other part of your work in this investigation? Not at that time, but later on, a couple of months down the road I did. Okay, Mrs. Crockett, can we have 592, please? Agent Sutherland handed you Exhibit 592. Could you hold that up for the jury? It says inert on the label, correct? Yes, it does. On the white label there. You had occasion to see the type of device when out the first time I recall for sure seeing it was out at Vernon's house later on, like I say, a couple of months later. There was a couple of them strapped to a flak jacket under that Schaefer had out there. Ultimately, where did you see that end up? It ended up at Coleman Barney's house a couple of days later. Okay. When you saw it at Vernon's house, who was living in the Vernon residence? Lonnie and Karen Vernon, and then Schaefer and Marty Cox and their little boy and newborn baby were out there staying with them. Okay, did you transport Mr. Cox someplace from the Vernon residence? Yes, I did, from the Vernons back to the Barney residence. And did you see the CS grenade on that occasion while you were transporting him? Yes, I did. How did you see it? It was hanging from a couple of hooks or straps of some kind hanging from the flap jacket. I carried it out and then seen it on there. How many did you see? 2? Scrocky, could we have Exhibit 167, please, and the lights, Denali? Do you recognize the item in the Exhibit 167? Yes, I do. That's the flap jacket. Okay, on the right-hand side, do you see those 2 metallic devices? Yes, just like this right here. Those are the ones you're talking about? Yeah, it sure is. Do you recognize what that photo was? Do you recognize where that photo was taken? That one was taken at Barney's house, Coleman Barney's house. All right, thank you. Could we have the lights, please? With this meeting you were talking about, Mr. Olson, KJNP security detail. Can you tell us again who was present? Because we can hear a lot of voices in the background. It was the sovereign citizens from Anchorage, a common law judge, Dave Bartels, David Roner, a guy named Jeremy Baker, a couple of ladies, Mary Morgan, I believe one of them name was, and then Schaefer Cox, myself, Marty, was there, but she wasn't involved in the meeting. She was kind of in and out of the room taking care of the babies. And there was a couple of other people that I don't recall their names and had to come up from Anchorage too, but I just seen them the one time, so I didn't get to know them. And you did not go on this detail? No, I did not. There was mention of a courthouse matter? Did that in fact occur to your knowledge? It didn't, because right before that was to happen, or the morning that was going to happen, Fairbanks had a terrible ice storm come in and shut everything down, shut the whole town down. The courts, all the government buildings everything was canceled for the day. All work was canceled. The roads were in terrible shape. Okay, so no courthouse, but did KJNP happen to your knowledge? Yes, it did. We got together and trained for the security detail for the courthouse before. The next morning we were going to get together and plan what was to train for the security detail in the courthouse, and while we were there waiting for a couple of other guys to show up to train for the security detail, we found out that the court had been canceled. So you were training with some individuals for the courthouse event? Yes. Can you tell the jury what kind of training that you did and with who? It was Major Thessing. Ken Thessing was one in the charge of it, and then there was a couple. There was a guy, Jas, I think his name was Jason, another militia member, and then another that I had gotten commissioned with me at the same time. He got stuck in the ditch coming to the event, so we ended up going up there and pulling him out of the ditch. And then sometime in the transition period from waiting there and waiting for him to show up and a couple of other guys to show up to pull him out of the ditch, Ken Thessing found out that the court hearing had been canceled, so we never ended up training. Did you do any practicing at all with respect to discussion about where you were going to for Mr. Cox at the courthouse? Yes, we did. What was that? We were going to meet over at the University of Alaska at Fairbanks. They've got a big long set of stairs, concrete stairs, outside stairs. They go up and up to the upper levels of the campus. And we were going to, I don't quite understand it all, but somehow we were going to gather around, have 4 or 5 guys gather around and lock arms around Ken, who was going to pretend to be Schaefer, and the rest of us were going to lock arms around him and practice going up and down these stairs. Let me interrupt you there. Why stairs? Because of the stairs in the courthouse. They were going to use the stairs in the courthouse. Which courthouse are you talking about? The state courthouse in Fairbanks, downtown Fairbanks. And there are a lot of stairs there. There's different stories, and so, it'd be enough stairs for one story. Okay, to go up, so I interrupted at one story. You said you were locking arms? We never actually did it, but that was the plan. That's what Ken was telling us we were going to do while we were waiting for a couple of other guys to show up. All right, so that was the plan. We actually didn't follow through with it. And that was part of what you volunteered for it as an exit team? Yeah. I did the exit team because there again, the security detail involved packing assault rifles, guns, and I couldn't do that as a felon. Okay, if you recall, where were you when the KGMP security detail happened? I was at my house. I was home at my house. Did there come a time where you attended another collection or meeting assembly of people involving Mr. Cox and Fairbanks? Yeah, there was. Yeah. And what kind of meeting was that? Just an information meeting? And where did it occur? Do you recall what part of Fairbanks? At the Carlson Center? And what was that meeting about? It was about the sovereign citizen movement, getting information on the sovereign citizen assembly post, an informational meeting, I guess you could say. So this was under the color of what organization? Under, I'm not real sure on what, I don't know what if it was an assembly or post or, what organ, what it was, but I'm just remembering now too. It was about how the court system is a fraud and the Alaska court system is scamming you in some way. All right, do you recall seeing some documentation about that? Yeah, we were supposed to, beforehand we were supposed to put up posters and hand out flyers, and Schaefer had prepared for this event because it was going to be a big turnout. There was also going to be a whole bunch of people show up for this. All right, let me see if we can get you an exhibit that will refer to that. Mr. Scrocky, can we have the lights, please, Mr. Olson? If you could take a look at Exhibit 444 without going into its contents. Do you recognize that? Yeah, I do. Is that the informational flyer you were talking about? Yeah, it is. We offer 444. No objection may be admitted. Scrocky, Mr. Olson, let me tell you. Please tell the jury your understanding and knowledge with respect to this flyer, how it was created, what was going to be done with it, what you were told to do, if anything. As it was created, I don't know. I never saw it get created actually, and I didn't see it come off the printing press or the copy machine or however it was done. But a bunch of these sovereign citizen guys from Anchorage and Schaefer, they had been up at his house for about a week and had put this together, and they were going to be the ones talking at this meeting in Carlson Center. All right, do you know how this particular document here was distributed to the public? They were stapling to the telephone poles around Fairbanks, the newspaper, and they handing them out. You had to, he wanted you to hand them out to whoever you could. Okay, Scrocky. Sean, if you could enlarge the text, so can you read that, please, Mr. Olson? Mine just went dead on me. Still there or not? Yeah, I'm here now. All right. I hit it. It says, court fraud, thousands of judgments void. The lawful courts of the judiciary appear to have been fraudulently displaced by a privately owned for-profit corporation deceptively named Alaska Court System. This corporation and the Alaska Bar Association are under criminal investigation. If you have a case decided without full disclosure or the true nature of the Alaska court system, the damages can be corrected, judgments can be overturned, and you may be entitled to restitution. A public meeting to explain the process in simple layman terms will be held at the Carlson Center on December 1st at 6:30 p.m. For more information, please call 456-2482. Mr. Olson, it states that the Alaska court system and the Alaska Bar Association are under criminal investigation. Yes. Was that the intent of this group? Was it to conduct a criminal investigation as you heard it? That's the way I understood it, yeah. On the back of that page, Mr. Olson, do you recall seeing that writing? Yes, I do. Scrocky, can we enlarge this? Can you read what that writing says? It says, complete this form and bring it to the December 1st meeting, Lex Rex. Is that writing familiar to you, Mr. Olson? Yes, it is. That's Schaefer Cox writing, handwriting. All right, and there's a list for this common law complaint form. Yes. Can you read the left-hand side column there? What it says? It says name, email address, phone number, names of government agencies, aggressors, etc., court case number. I'm interested in common law retrial, yes or no. Brief summary of the incident attached. Okay, Scrocky, scroll down if you could. Keep going. Then it has numbers 1 through 15, the lines to write on. Then it says, please attach a copy of sworn complaint, police report, order, judgment, decree, other relevant documents for help with this form. Call 907-456-2482 or 590-9903 or email alaskacourtfraud@gmail.com. Mr. Olson, with respect to those two phone numbers, do either one of them mean anything to you or do you recognize them? The first one is a landline number from Fairbanks, but I don't know the other one off the top of my head. Okay, but 590-9903 is Schaefer's cell phone number. Thank you. If we could have the lights, Madam Clerk. Mr. Olson, do you attend the meeting on December 1st? Yes, I did. Please tell the jury what you did in coordination with Agent Sutherland with respect to that meeting. I obviously talked to him about it because after all this, He knew it was going to happen, and he didn't have me task me to go to it. He said I could go if I wanted as a private citizen. Just go. He said he didn't have an opinion one way or another. And did you go? Yeah, I did. And you did not have a recorder with you? No, I didn't record anything at that meeting. So he just earlier testified that he always recorded everything. No, I didn't record anything at that meeting. So where was the assembly supposed to take place? It was at the Carlson Center. It's a big gymnasium ice skating. They got hockey, a big public building. And how many people showed up? It was a side room. It wasn't out in the big part. It was like a little conference room off the side. There were probably 40 to 50 people there. Okay, and anybody bring these anybody bring these complaint forms to the assembly? I've seen a couple of them, but I don't know, for sure. I know I did see a couple of them because I seen a lady filling out one out and then another guy standing there with one that was already filled out. Who was leading the assembly? Schaefer obviously was, but Judge Bartell spoke at this. Dave Bartell's and another guy. This other guy, Jeremy Baker, who was from Anchorage here. Did you meet Judge Bartels? Yes, I did. Is he a judge like Judge Bryan? No, he's not. Where's he from? Big Lake or Wasilla, Palmer, somewhere out in the valley? Does he have any legal training at all? I don't know. I don't know if he was. I don't know. You don't know. No, he wasn't wearing a black robe then. No, he was just dressed in a regular flannel shirt. Flannel shirt and blue jeans? Okay, so how long were you with this assembly for this common law court fraud meeting? It was probably 2 hours, It went on, Schaefer talked for a long time. They all had a lot to say. And so it went on a lot longer than it was. People started leaving, so they wrapped it up. I want to turn your attention to the month of December in 2010, okay? Are you aware of Mr. Cox having court appearances during that month? Yes, he did. And how many do you recall? Well, there was the one that was canceled, affirmative, I know for sure, and then another one towards the middle of the month. So there was one cancel, one middle of the month. Did you attend the court proceedings when Mr. Cox was in court? Yes, I did. What would that have been the second one? Was there a third? I don't recall what order it fell in. Okay, but you recall attending one? Yeah, I did. All right, and you tell the jury about the time frame and the nature of the legal proceeding you attended. It was some kind of a status hearing for this weapons case that he had in Fairbanks Court, and we had a whole bunch of people show up for it and attended a bunch of militia guys. There wasn't a bunch, but there was 3 of us or 4 of us. What was your understanding of the weapons charge? My understanding of the whole story is that, well, I wouldn't say story, but what was your understanding of the nature of the charges that Mr. Cox was in court for? He had shown up at a place where the cops at Fairbanks police office had been called out to and didn't declare to the police officers that he had a concealed weapon in his pocket, and they had arrested him for that. And why were you and the other members of the militia attending this proceeding? We were told to. For what purpose? To observe and show support, I guess, as part of the militia. So you did that? Yeah, we did. Mr. Cox was not taken into custody or anything like that after the hearing, was he? No. It was just a status hearing. I don't know for sure a status hearing, but some kind of a pretrial hearing. About this time frame let me try to something different here. I'm jumping ahead. During the time that you were in court hearing for Mr. Cox, did you have occasion to observe him trying to do anything with paperwork during the proceeding? Yeah, he had a bunch of us fill out some different kind of common law sovereign citizen paperwork and file it with the clerk in the court's office downstairs on the main level of the court building after the hearing. Did you yourself sign or file one of these documents? Yes, I did. Did you recall for the jury who else might have done that? I know Coleman Barney did, confessing, and I don't recall if Lon Vernon did or not. So with respect to this one court appearance, were there, so there were Mr. Cox, Mr. Barney, yeah, well, who else? Lonnie Vernon, that was pretty much it. All right, Mr. Thessing? That I knew anyway. People that I knew, those were the only militia members. Do you recall Mr. Thessing being there or not? Oh yeah, Ken Thessing too, yeah. Around this time frame, did Mr. Cox make a request of you concerning any kind of items that you might have had in your possession concerning firearms? Yeah, he wanted to take inventory of all the weapons that the militia had, all their personal weapons. Did you give him an inventory of what you had? No, he never followed through on it, and I never pushed it either. Okay, are you yourself to some extent familiar with firearms? To a certain extent, yes. Can you tell the jury the types of firearms you owned in the course of your life? I've owned assault rifles, HK-91, AK-47, hunting rifles, 30-06, some handguns, 45s, 44s. Okay, and since you're a felon, you can never possess a firearm? That's correct. This was pre-felony conviction. For the record, that's what I was inquiring about, yes. You mentioned this assembly post group. Was there another meeting in December with respect to something occurring with the assembly post and Mr. Cox? Yes, there was. Do you recall where that meeting was and what it was designed to set up? It was at Denny's. Okay, how about that? How about before that? Before that, I don't recall. I have to look at the 1023s. Do you need one of those documents we're talking about? Might refresh your recollection. Yes, it would. Okay, okay, sir. We've come here, given the report you were talking about. You're calling it a 1023? Yeah. And is this one of the reports Agent Sutherland generated after the meeting and discussing with you and had occurred during the particular contact with the defendant? Yeah. It's when we get done after meeting up with these guys, I was saying earlier, debriefed, and Agent Sutherland would write it down, and at some point it was taken and typed up and made into a form. They called it a 1023. So alright, so that's where that is here. So you've read all the 1023s? Yes, I have. And if you read that one, would you refresh your recollection about the meeting? Yeah, it would. Okay, what we need to do is to read it yourself and not talk about the contents. Okay, let us know when you're done. Okay. Miss Hayden, Your Honor, is it possible for us to know what he's reading? Maybe bait stamp? All done, yeah. Okay, before we get into anything else, is there a date on the top of that 1023? Yeah, there is. What's the date? It's 12/29/2010. Okay, stop there just a second. Does that help you, counsel? Yes, thank you. Mr. Olson, does that refresh your recollection? Yes, it does now. Okay, can you tell the jury as to the contents of the meeting and what you were discussing in the terms of Assembly Post meeting? It was a conference call that the Assembly Post, the National Assembly Post, was having with Schaefer, invited me up to come sit in on it, and involved several people here around the United States, and they called in and were part of this conference. Do you recall who was on the conference call? A guy named Michael Donald, and then several sovereign common law judges, Assembly Post judges, and the Assembly Post was broke into. They had like legislatures and senators and everything set up for each state, and so there were several of them calling in, secretaries of states and different things. Secretaries of state for the Assembly Post, not Hillary Clinton, no. This was the Assembly Post secretaries. Okay, Mr. Olson, did you have text traffic back and forth between Mr. Cox and yourself with respect to these court hearings, whether you attended or not, and why? Yeah, we did. All right, let's take a look at some of those. Let me come get that from you, Scrocky. Could we have 799 up again, please? Do you have it there in front of you, Mr. Olson? What's that? Do you have that? Yeah. There in front of you? It is, yeah. We're going to have to dim the lights on you again, okay? So I want to take a look at these text summary, and there's a date and time on the left-hand side. Do you see that? Yeah, I do. Would that be the sent time? I assume so, yeah. Okay, you're not really sure? I'm not sure. I see sent right next to it, so all right. I want to turn your attention to the ones around 11:20, and I'm going to jump to 12:11, okay? Okay. There was one here. Can you read that, what I've circled there? It says, I don't think I'm qualified for security detail, but I'd be glad to do exit. All right, and the time frame of that text, that was back in the court hearing that got canceled. All right. During the ice storm, that's when you talked about I can do exit, but nothing else. Yeah, because there again, Agent Sutherland didn't authorize me to do security detail. All right, now you're going to do this one here under December 10th. Do you see that? Yeah, I do. Can you read what you sent to Mr. Cox? I said, hey, Schaefer, I apologize for not making it this afternoon. I was on my way out of the woods and had a flat tire, and we didn't have a jack, so we had to walk 3 miles to the job and get the skidder to lift the truck up. I tried to call Major Barney to let him know, but got no answer. I hope all went well with your hearing. Thanks, JR. And what was the text in reference to? In reference to a court hearing, and this is why that's the excuse you gave to him for not making it. Yeah, it is. Scrocky, if we can scroll down the next page on the 1210, you got a text back? Yeah, I did. If we can blow this up all the way down there, thank you. What were you texted back by Mr. Cox? It says, it was the most amazing event thus far. We totally ruled them on everything. They didn't even put up a fight. I told them I wasn't coming back, so the DA jumped up and said, he just said he wasn't coming back. Arrest him right now. Then I looked at the black robe and smiled, ready when you are, and she ran out of the courtroom. Then we all just walked out. And this was in respect to some court hearing he attended? Yes, it was. Did you respond back? Yeah, I did. And what? And that would reference where I just squared right there? Yeah, what did you respond? I said, wow, praise God, I actually talked with Coleman a couple hours ago and he filled me in. We need to be prepared for the next step because I don't believe they are just going to let it go. They have too much at stake just to roll over. Keep me informed as to what's next as far as what I need to do or to prepare. Okay, Scrocky. If we can scroll down, please, I'll turn your attention to the ones listed at 12, December 18th of 2010. Do you see the text you sent there? Yeah, I do. Can you read it? It says, hey, Schaefer, I just talked to Coleman to see about what's happening on Monday, and he said to shoot you a text to see if you had anything I could do. I'll be available Monday to help out wherever I can. Just let me know. And what's that in reference to, Mr. Olson? 1218, you know, I'm not sure. I'd have to look again at... Could it be one of those court dates? I think so, but I can't say for sure. Okay. Would that be about the approximate time of one of the court dates? Yeah, it was. It was right before Christmas time. I know that. Okay, that's fine. Mr. Olson, I think you told us your first name is Gerald, and here we have JR. Is JR you? Is that you, JR Olson? Yes, it is. Yeah, the court. Okay. If we can keep the lights down for just a moment, Madam Clerk, Scrocky. This is the conference call that you attended at Mr. Cox's home with the Secretaries of State or the Assembly Post, yeah. Individuals and was toward the tail end of the December, yeah, it was. All right, if I could have you turn the page, our text listing, Scrocky. If you can go to 111, Sean, just scroll down for me. Do you recall making the text, Mr. Olson? Yeah, I do. What's in that reference to? Just sitting in on another conference call? Okay, what does it say? It says, hey, Schaefer, Happy New Year. Thanks for letting me sit in on the conference call the other day. It has inspired me to be even more than I was. Even more than I was. What we are doing is right. It has also caused me to dig in and research even more. Assembly Post website has a lot of useful info. Let me know if there's any more I can do or calls I can sit in on. Also, thanks for being a leader. A lot of us are so busy that without someone like yourself leading us, nothing would get done in this fight against tyranny. What a freaking liar, man. He's just lying left and right. Mr. Olson, with respect to these texts and your discussions on these conference calls with Mr. Cox and others, what was that leading up to? Leading up to as far as an event? What was it leading up to? Some sort of court hearing? Leading up to Schaefer's trial, his actual trial on the misdemeanor weapons charges. Okay, what kind of trial? The real court trial at the Alaska State Court trial. Okay, what about the respect to some other type of trial that was held in a non-court area? He was going to have a common law trial, a sovereign citizen trial as well before the real court trial. And so we were preparing for that. Is that what some of these conference calls and meetings and texts were about? Yeah, it was. Okay, was there a pre-meeting or some sort of meeting before the actual common law trial? There was the night before. Okay. Did you attend the common law trial? Yeah, I did. And there was a meeting before? Did you attend that as well? Yeah, I did. When did you recall that happened? The common law trial? It was January, February, the first part of February. I don't recall the exact date. Okay, January, February, yeah, all right. If we can have the lights, Madam Clerk. With respect to this common law trial, there was a pre-meeting, yeah. When was the pre-meeting held? At Denny's Restaurant in Fairbanks. Like in the restaurant area or some other place? In the restaurant area, like in a little side room. Like where, you have a big gathering of a bunch of friends or family. You'd reserve like the side room. How many folks attended this pre-meeting? Probably 30, 35. Was Mr. Cox there? Yeah, he was. Other folks you've already mentioned in your testimony, were they all there as well? Yeah, they were all there. Could you give the jury a list of who was there? The ones I know that I knew, there were several there I didn't know, but the ones that I would know, I have been Lonnie and Karen and Coleman, Barney, Ken Thassing, Schaefer's mom and dad. I'm sorry, not Schaefer's mom and dad. Coleman's mom and dad. Not Schaefer's. And that's about all I can think of right off the top of my head. How about Mr. Zerby? No, he was not there. Mr. Baker? No, Jeremy Baker wasn't. Well, I don't recall that for sure. All right. So with respect to the procedure for the pre-meeting before the trial, who was in charge? Schaefer was. And you attended this meeting from beginning to end? Yes, I did. And what happened during the course of this thing? Tell the jury what you saw, what the procedure was going to be. Basically, it was a trial planning for the trial, picking the jury. And the way I understood it was the judge in the case pretty much had already decided that the outcome was going to be he was going to rule, and it's just a bunch of sovereign citizen assembly post talk. Word to your knowledge, was there an opportunity for members of the state of Alaska with respect to Mr. Cox's case to come forward during the trial? Yes, they had issued subpoenas. The common law court there had issued subpoenas to the arresting officer that arrested him and the judges involved in the case, and all of the court officers, anybody involved with the official state case against Schaefer. They issued subpoenas for them to show up in court, to the common law court. So part of the proceeding in this common law court was to deal with this weapons charge. Yeah. Was there anything else in terms of charges against Mr. Cox that was going to be dealt with during the common law court? Yeah. There was going to rehear his conviction that he had pled guilty on a domestic violence case that he pled guilty on. So that was going to be heard as well. That was heard as well. Yeah. How long did his pre-meeting last? It was another, 2 or 3 hours. Who was going to be the presiding judicial officer? A guy named Raymond Leo, Judge Raymond Leo. He's from Washington State, I believe, Portland or Vancouver, somewhere down Washington State. Raymond Leo. Did he personally appear? No, he was on a speakerphone. Okay, so did the common law court trial at Denny's happen? Yes, it did. The next night, and you don't recall what date, right? I don't recall a specific date. No, you attended the common law trial? Yeah, I did. I was a juror. How long were you a jury? You were a juror? Yeah, how long was it? The actual trial itself, it was probably an hour and a half long. But they were having a bunch of logistical trouble getting all the speakers and the microphones and the phone lines and everything together to work. So the whole thing from start to finish was probably 3.5 hours. Did this Judge Raymond Leo preside over the proceedings? Okay, it's top of page 121.
All right. Was he the one in charge? Yes, he was. What was Mr. Cox doing? He was kind of refereeing, so to speak, what was going on. He was in charge as well. But Judge Raymond Leo was on the phone doing all the official stuff. Did Mr. Cox give testimony? Yes, he did. What did he talk about? He talked about the state case against him, went through his version of domestic violence conviction and why that should be overturned, and then gave his version of the events on when he got arrested on the weapons charge and the trial that was coming up. What did Mr. Cox say with respect to whether he was carrying a firearm when confronted by Sergeant Yamamoto at this common law trial? He said he was carrying a .380 pistol, and he said he carried it for 6 years in his pocket. You mentioned that Miss Cox's domestic violence matter was also heard. Yes, that's correct. Did he provide testimony about that? Yes, he did. Like I say, he gave his version of what happened in that case, which was he was driving. Do you want me to go? No, I don't want you to go. Okay. Into the facts of it. Did he deny that it occurred? Yes, he did, yeah. All right. Was Miss Cox present? No, she wasn't. She called in on the phone and gave her version over the phone. She had babies or whatever at home. So she didn't appear personally? No, she wasn't there personally. So did you folks? Well, let me ask you this. How many folks were on the jury? It seemed there was something about 24, 26 it was. It was more than a 12-man jury, and I know that. But I think it was either 24 or 26. I don't recall the exact number. Okay. But in the 20s. In the back room at Denny's? Yeah. In the side room, back room. Did you guys deliberate? I didn't know. Everyone pretty much knew how they were going to vote beforehand. No deliberations? No. So tell this jury about the common law jury's verdict. That as to Mr. Cox's 2 state of Alaska court offenses. He was found not guilty on both of them in the common law jury or in the common law trial. Do you recall seeing some paperwork about
who attended the common law trial and the verdict form that was issued in that case? Yeah, there was a sign-up sheet and then the jury sheet saying, how you voted, the verdict, I guess, the verdict sheet. Or, I don't know the technical term or what they called it. All right. Scrocky, can we have the last Denali? Mr. Olson, we're going to put up on the screen 472 and 473. Do you recognize 472? Yeah. Is that something you signed in connection with common law court? Yes, I did. At Denny's? Yeah, I did. Do you see 473? And Mr. Olson, yeah, I do. And was that made in connection with the common law trial at Denny's? Yeah, that's the list of car. Okay, that's fine. We're just at the foundational stage here. Scrocky, let's go back to 472 and see if we have a second page. There we go. The first side of 2.2. Do you see that, Mr. Olson? Yeah, I do. Is that the verdict form you spoke of? Yeah, it is. We offer 472.73. No objection may be admitted. So, Mr. Olson, that says jury sign up at the top. Do you see it? Yeah, I do. There's a date there for the sign-in. Yeah, I see it. What's the date? It says January 16, 2010. Does it seem to have to jive with the time frame that you were talking about here? Yeah, it does, yeah. Can we enlarge this, Sean? Do you see your name on the jury sign-in form, Mr. Olson? Yeah, I do. It's number 6, J.R. Olson. All right, and there's Mark Gilmore. Do you see that? Yeah, I do. Why don't you look at number 9 all the way over to the far right-hand side? Yeah. Whose signature that? It's Coleman Lee, and that would be Coleman Barney. Was he there? Yeah, he was. On both occasions? Both of them, yes. Why, with respect to some of these names, are we just seeing partial, like first name, middle name? There's something about, I don't understand it all, but in the common law sovereign citizen way, you don't sign your last name. Your last name isn't something you sign on a legal document. You only sign your first and your first and your middle. And so all the ones that were real sovereign citizens were signing their first and middle. You got it wrong. You put your first and your initials and your last name, yes? Yes, so I'm used to doing that and signing my last name, and I forgot. All right, do you know with respect to Bill Lee who Bill Lee is? That would be Coleman's dad. How about Meg Lynn? That's his mom. Were they there? Yeah, they were. Were they there for both proceedings? I know they were there for the trial for sure, and yeah, they were there for the other one as well. All right, do you see them in court here today? Yeah, they are sitting back here in the gallery. Yeah, in the white shirt and the blue shirt back there. How about 12 and 13? 12 is Lonnie, Jean, it looks like, and 13 is Karen Louise. Mr. and Miss Vernon, both there for the trial? Yeah, they were. And 14 is something Russell Thessing. I don't know it. It's Ken and C or what, but you recognize the last name? Yeah. That's Ken Thessing. Do you recall Mr. Thessing being there? Yeah, he was. And then we have 16 and 17? Yeah, Bill Rensel and Brad K. Do you know who Brad K is? Yeah, I do. Who's that? It's Brad K. Baker. Mr. Olson, the date on this jury sign-in says January 16, 2010. Yes. Is that the right year? Is that the right year? No, someone, they're so used to writing 2010 they forgot to switch it to 11. First of the year mess up? Yeah. Scrocky, let's go to the second page of 472. Blow that up and as good as you can, Sean. Not much of an enlargement, but what is the page, Mr. Olson, 472? That's the verdict we were talking about a bit ago. All right, there's a list at the top that says scribe. Do you see that? And whose name is there? Lorna Maresh. And do you see your signature here on the verdict form? Yes, I do, on the right-hand side towards the top there, right there. Yes, J.R. Raymond. I remembered to do the middle name only. And then we have the individual here I'm circling on the left-hand side of the page. Yeah, that's Kenneth Russell's family Thessing. All right. Then we have Coleman Lee again. Yeah. Can you read the email address that's there? mammoth@hotmail.com. And down below his name, Bill Rensel. And then Rensel at ptialaska.net. Then we have, I'm just going to turn your attention to the right-hand side for Bill Lee and May Lee. Yeah, it's Bill Lee Alas, AKMAE13 at yahoo.com. Those are Barney's parents? Yeah, that's right. Before we move on to the next page, Mr. Olson, as you understand it, what was the operative effect of the verdict form on the charges? Mr. Cox, one had pled guilty in the state court and pending charges on file against him. I'm asking, what's your understanding from being there? From them being there, I understood that from what they were saying that the common law system trumped the Alaska court system because the Alaska court system was a fraud, wasn't legit. So because it's a common law verdict, that nothing the Alaska court system said or ruled or whatever was legit. You didn't have to abide by that, or Schaefer didn't have to abide by that because being found innocent in common law was trial. Was that a unanimous verdict? Yeah, it was. Both counts? Both counts, yeah. Scrocky, if we can move to 473, thank you. Are you familiar with the list of items here on 473, Mr. Olson? Yes, I am. Was that list read to anybody during the trial? Yeah, it was. It was read to everybody present, as well as the judge on the phone. Who read it? Schaefer did. Let's just talk about, why don't you read them, okay? Perjury of oath, kidnapping a minister of foreign jurisdiction, false arrest, imprisonment, assault on a foreign official, impersonating public official, abuse of proper due process, use of false info to obtain arrest, perjury under oath, excessive jurisdiction, conversion of a right to a crime, ID theft, theft of biological identifiers, enticement into slavery, involuntary signature, court extortion, fictitious plaintiff, securities fraud, threat, duress, and coercion with threat of felony, kidnapping of a minor, impersonating a public officer, enticement into making false statement, tampering and intimidation of a witness, acts of war under declaration of peace, theft of personal chattel, trespass of secured constitutional rights. Mr. Olson, with respect to these items here, extortion, acts of war under a declaration of peace, what was the basis for presenting these items to the jury? They were charges that were charging the Fairbanks City police officers and court officials, everyone involved in the state court, that the common law court charged them with. Do you recall a process being served or paperwork that was going to be served? Yeah, there was a discussion about that. Was there a discussion about how much money was going to be sought? Oh, yeah, there was. I'm trying to remember how much. It was like $32 million. It was up in the millions. Thank you. If we could have the last Denali, what about the Sergeant Yamamoto? Was he charged? Yeah, he was. What was Mr. Cox's reaction to the verdict? He was happy that he had been found innocent and relieved. So this is early January 2011? Yeah. All right, let me turn your attention to Mr. Ken Thessing. You've met Mr. Thessing? Yeah, I have. Can you describe him to the jury? He's a middle-aged guy, I suppose, kind of balding. I guess a nice guy. Okay. You saw the photo earlier in your testimony this morning? Yeah, I did. You saw his photo earlier in the testimony this morning? Yeah, I did. The newspaper photo? Yeah. And he was wearing glasses? Yeah, those dark sunglasses. Did he tell you why he was wearing glasses? Yeah, he didn't want the government, the feds, to be able to scan his eyes through the picture. Through the newspaper photo? Yeah, the newspaper photo. He had been called to that interview or whatever it was. Objection to hearsay, Your Honor? No, he told me. If he objects, you got to stop. I didn't hear. Traverso, hearsay as to what Ken Thessing said. He's not here for us to cross-examine. Mr. Thessing is definitely a co-conspirator in this case. In this case would be our argument, Your Honor. Not charged as such. He's never been anywhere. I think that's a fair objection, counsel. Okay. Scrocky, with respect, do you have a meeting with Mr. Thessing? Yeah, I did. And where did you have the meeting? At his bus, his house. He lived in a school bus converted into a motorhome. And did you meet with him in that month? What year? It would have been in the later part of January, first part of February 2011. Okay, Mr. Thessing was a member of this militia. Yeah, he was. Of the Alaska. He was a major in the Alaska Peacemakers militia. Yeah, he was. You observed him at the common law trial? Yeah, he was. He voted in favor of acquitting Mr. Cox? Yeah, he did. Okay, you're familiar with the 2-for-1 plan, correct? Yes, I am. That meeting about where first the 2-for-1 plan was first announced was held where? At Ken Thessing's bus and his bus. He was present for that meeting? Yeah, he was. He participated in the discussions about the 2-for-1 plan? Yeah, he did. Mr. Thessing was also a member of another militia group? Was he not? Just let me. I apologize. That was inartfully done. He was a member of another group. I won't call it a militia group. He was a member of another sovereign citizens group. Yeah, he was. What was the name of that group? Restore America Republic or Restore the USA or something like that. RAROAR. They called it RUSA. I've heard it referred to several different acronyms. The RUSA, yeah, RUSA. The capital R, small U, SA? Yeah. Do you have a meeting with him in the bus in Fairbanks and Mr. Olson in January? Yeah, I did. When you had this meeting, did you have occasion to observe any firearms in the bus? Yes, I did. What did you observe? There was an SKS assault rifle hanging by the driver's seat of the bus. As you walked up the steps of the bus, right in front of you, there was a rifle hanging. Do you recall anything particular about the magazine? It had a 30-round banana clip magazine and another one flipped the other way, taped to it, all taped, so they were taped together so you could, when one was empty, you could click it out and flip it around real quick and lock the other magazine in and have 30 more rounds. How long of a discussion did you have with Mr. Thessing about these other sovereign citizen groups, or in one particular, whichever it was? It was both of them. It was, oh boy, 4 hours probably, 3.5, 4.5 hours. It was quite a lengthy discussion. Was it an educational type thing or for a recruitment type of thing for you? Tell the jury what you perceive to have been the reason for that meeting. It was two of these alternative group meetings, sovereign citizen groups, whatever you want to call them, that I was aware of, the RUSA one and the Assembly Post. Schaefer was involved in the Assembly Post because he had gotten kicked out of RUSA, or they had parted ways or something. Ken Thessing had stayed with RUSA, and Schaefer was always pushing Assembly Post, and Ken Thessing was always pushing RUSA. So the Assembly Post was made up mainly of guys that had become disgruntled with RUSA, and they went off and started their own. And so Thessing seen that I was showing interest in Assembly Post, and he called me to a meeting to try to get me to become a member of the RUSA. So he wanted to tout the benefits of RUSA versus Assembly Post. So did you sign up? No, there's no sign up, but yeah, I was, showed an interest in it. All right, when you were commissioned, Mr. Olson, back in August, of 2010, you held what rank? Private, I guess. I don't know for sure, but I assumed I was a private entry level. Well, you got one rivet, yeah. Did there come a point in time where you got a promotion? Yeah, I did. Who gave you that promotion, Sheriff Cox? Please explain to the jury why you got that promotion and the circumstances of getting that promotion. There was a military conference that was going to be held down here in Anchorage, and it was for command staff level of the militia throughout the state, and they were coming together for a big meeting. And so let me stop you there. So is Mr. Cox going to attend the militia convention? Yeah, he was. Where was it going to be held? At the Millennium Hotel in Anchorage here. Do you recall the approximate time frame for that convention? February, first part of February. Okay, Mr. Cox approached you about going to this? Yes, he did. You and who else? He wanted Ken Thessing, myself, Coleman Barney was going to go. We were all, and then Schaefer, we were all going to go down to it. Okay, and there was this reason that plans changed. Yeah, Coleman backed out for something. I don't remember what came up, and he couldn't go. Ken Thessing, that was part of the meeting. He called me to. He did not think it wise to go. He advised me against going because he said Schaefer's going to get objection. Hearsay again, Ken Thessing. The court sustained. Let's try to avoid for now what Mr. Thessing told you. Okay. So were you given an explanation by Mr. Cox about why he was not going to go? Yeah, he and his wife had just had a little baby. Their baby was born the night before, 2 nights before. So all right, before we were to leave. So what happened with respect to he sending you? Sending me, yes. So what about the promotion? How does that factor into the militia convention? Well, Ken couldn't make it and Coleman couldn't make it, so he didn't really want Lonnie going, but since he wanted to send 2 guys down, he sent myself and Lonnie. But before I could go in an official capacity, I had to be moved up in rank, up to a higher rank. I couldn't just be a private, I needed to be a sergeant. So he moved me up to rank to represent the militia at the conference. Okay. So you went down there as a sergeant? Yeah, I did. What was Mr. Vernon's rank? He was a sergeant as well already. Could you explain to the jury your understanding of the purpose of the convention at the Millennium Hotel? Just the planning, I guess, convention, for all the militias to go to state to get together and to get to know each other, the leaders to get to know each other, talk, to discuss new weapons, new gear, different things like that. Prior to going to the Millennium Hotel and the convention in Anchorage, did you have occasion to talk to Mr. Vernon before you left? Yeah, I did. What did you guys talk about? We talked about going down there, going to how we were going to get there and whatnot. Did you have a discussion about any firearms or weaponry before you left with Mr. Vernon? We discussed what we were going to take, what kind of weapons we should take. Okay. For protection on the way, there and back. Did you have an understanding as to whether Mr. Vernon had knowledge of your promotion? Yeah, he did. He knew. Schaefer had told him previously. Okay, but during your involvement with Mr. Cox, Mr. Barney, and Mr. Vernon, I'm sort of jumping ahead a little bit. Did you have an occasion to remove anything from a specific piece of property on their behalf? Yeah, I did. And what was that in a general sense? Weapons. It was a weapons cache that they were cleaning out. And where's that located? On Broadway Road in North Pole. All right. So flipping back, did you ever have discussions about any weapons caches with Mr. Vernon or Mr. Cox before you left for the militia? Okay, that's page 141. Before you left for the militia convention? Yes, we did. I had it with Lonnie Vernon. What was the nature of the discussion? He had told me, now that I'm a sergeant, they're going to have to show me where their weapons caches were. And were you ever shown those caches? I seen one because we had to move it, and the other one was out at Lonnie Vernon's house, and I got there, but so yes, I've seen two of them. There was another one supposedly up at Chena Hot Springs Road, but I never did see that one. Never seen that one? Never did see it, no. Prior to leaving for the convention, Mr. Olson, did you have occasion to speak with Mr. Cox? Yes, I did. Was Mr. Vernon in your presence? Yes, he was. And were you given some instructions by Mr. Cox with respect for looking for things when you went down to Anchorage for this militia convention? Yes, he did. He told us. What were those things? He wanted us to pick up some grenade bodies, fuses for the grenades, C4 if we could get it, and those are the three specifics that I remember. Is that convention reflected on what you have as their Exhibit 3-2? Yes, it is. This is it. Scrocky, I'd like to play 3-2, or do you want to take a break, Judge? The court, yeah, let's take an afternoon break, folks. Before we get to that, we'll take about 15 minutes. You may be excused. All right, this matter is in recess for 15 minutes. The clerk, all rise. His Honor, the court, this United States District of Court is again in session. Please be seated, bring in the jury. And you're going to play this next three, is that right? Scrocky, yes, sir. We have a couple of in succession. I'm going to ask him a couple of questions before we start off, but we have a few for Exhibit 3. The court, okay, you may continue, Mr. Scrocky. Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Olson, before the break, we were talking about a meeting you had with Mr. Cox relating to going to Anchorage to attend his militia convention. Yes, do you recall where the meeting was? Up at Shaver's house? All right. During the meeting, is that where you got your promotion to sergeant? Yeah, it was. And that's reflected in the first transcript we've picked up here in Exhibit 302? Yeah, it is. There's mention in the segment we're going to hear about of an individual named Bill Fulton. Yeah. Could you explain to the jury who Bill Fulton is, what you know about him, and how it came up? Bill Fulton, owned a military surplus store here in Anchorage and was a gun dealer, a Class 3 gun dealer, and Schaefer brought it up. He was the one putting the convention on and was the one we're supposed to get in contact, and when we got into town, he got our hotel key because he had a room for us to stay in. All right, let me clarify something because you blended it together. Mr. Fulton was putting on the convention? Yes, he was. Okay, not Mr. Cox. No, Mr. Cox, no. All right. Did it seem to you there had been some degree of coordination between Mr. Cox and Mr. Fulton before you met with Schaefer Cox? Yeah, they had been talking about it. And the second segment we're going to hear, 303, concerns the discussions of grenades and the other items? Yeah. Scrocky, if we could play 3-02, Madam Clerk, the audio is running by our counter, but we're not getting it. Did he check his audio connections from the DEPS into his laptop or his PC? We're going to have to take a break, Judge. We have his monitor running, the tape is running, but we can't get the audio out of it. Do you need an expert? There's lots of experts in this case, I think we do. Okay, you may be excused. We'll try to get this fixed. Thank you. All rise. The matter stands in brief recess. All right, His Honor. The court, the United States District Court, is again in session. Please be seated. Are we ready to go? Yes, sir. With 3, yes. Bring in the jury, please. The court, okay, times have changed. When I first became a trial judge in my home county in Port Orchard, Washington, the courtroom did not have a speaker system. There was no wires in the courtroom of any nature or kind. Every now and then somebody would have something they would plug in, but we did have all this stuff, and we didn't have to take breaks to find an expert to fix our equipment either. Anyway, times have changed. I expect
All for the better. Mr. Scrocky, you may continue. Thank you, Your Honor. We'd like to publish an Exhibit 302, audio server, end of audio. Scrocky, just a few minutes, Mr. Olson. Before the next clip, there was a mention of a Norm Olson. Yes. Do you know who that person is and what his background is? Yes, he's the leader of a militia that's down on Kenai Peninsula, and he's originally from Michigan. He was the leader of the Michigan militia for years. Okay, and this conversation has taken place in Mr. Cox's home? Yes, it is. In what part of his home? At his kitchen table. Okay, Scrocky, if we could publish 303. This concerns the hand grenades, correct? Audio server, end of audio. Mr. Olson, do you recall Mr. Cox talking to you about putting an ALS fuse into the grenade body? Yes, I do. And then taping the bottom? Yes. Do you know what taping means? Yes, I do. Please tell the jury what you understand taping to mean, or tapping. If you have a hole that doesn't have any threads in it, you can take a tap, it's called, and screw it in there, and it creates threads in a smooth bored hole, a hole so you can screw a bolt in. All right, and he mentioned an ALS fuse. Yes, he did. In Exhibit 592 in front of you, yes, it is. Send the letters ALS marked on the canister. Yes, I do. Thank you. You mentioned talking about 8-second fuses and pineapple grenades. Yes, and during that conversation, there was some discussion by Mr. Cox about the speed of the duration of fuses. Do you recall that? Yes, I do. Was this the first time the matter of grenade bodies and fuses and the duration of a specific fuse occurred between you? Yes, there was. Nothing before then? No, not that I recall. With respect to the device that we have in front of you, Exhibit 592, affirmative, can you unscrew the fuse? So you can, yes? Yeah, it comes out. Okay, put it back in for us. Okay, and also Mr. Cox also mentioned gunpowder, putting gunpowder into the grenade body. Yes, he did. And you recall him talking about new fuses? Yes. That he said he had some new fuses? He had some. Did the subject come up with fuses come up with your trip to the Millennial Hotel? Yeah, it did. Mr. Vernon stated about adding phosphorus. Yes. To the gunpowder mixture? Yes. And did he state that he would like a 50? Yes, he did. In the context of your conversation, what was 50 about? A 50 caliber rifle. Do you recall hearing Mr. Cox speak about how having a source to get him some C4? Yes, he did. Did you have an understanding, Mr. Olson, what was C4? It's a pliable explosive from what I understand. Okay, prior to this meeting, Mr. Cox and Mr. Vernon, was there any discussion about C4 beforehand? No, not that I was involved in it, so this would be the first time you ever involved with a discussion about C4? Yes, it was. Hand grenade? Yes, it was. And how to make them operational? Yes, it was the first time. During this conversation, was Mr. Cox demonstrating anything to you with respect to these items? He didn't have one in his hand, just talking about it, and you offered up that you had a source for what you called stamped M16s? Yes, I did. Why did you do that? Agent Sutherland had told me prior to this that if there was any opportunity that the expressed interest in illegal weapons of any kind to engage them in that and let them know that I had a source, I could get him in the weapons or whatever they were looking for. He didn't seem particularly interested in the M16s. No, he wasn't. Did that subject about M16s or that source that you mentioned you had come up again later? Yes, it does. Mr. Vernon, where did this... There with this conversation. Yes, he was. Was he present? Yes, he was. You see, this was in Mr. Cox's kitchen. This particular conversation here, we moved from the kitchen after moving up in rank. This was in the entryway, kind of mudroom type entryway where you come into the house. All right. And after the conversation was over, what did you do next? Lonnie and I loaded up the vehicle and headed for Anchorage. Can you tell the jury what kind of vehicle you used on the drive? It was a Ford Expedition provided by who? By the FBI Special Agent Sutherland. Co-counsel pointed out at the front of the conversation about the grenades. Affirmative. The very beginning of the conversation, there was a reference to a phone. To what? To a phone. Oh yes. Do you recall seeing and hearing it? Yes, I do. And that was Mr. Cox asking you a question about his phone. I believe it was me asking because he had taken our cell phone. He had taken my cell phone and hid it. And I think I was asking for him for it. Is that you? Asking him where it was at? I believe so, yes. So you're looking back at the transcript to refresh your recollection. I'm going back there now, but that's how I recall the conversation. So when did Mr. Cox take your phone? Earlier at some point, then we moved into an entryway. There was to start talking about grenades and this right before the conversation started.
What kind of phone did you have? An iPhone? And did you see where he put it? He put it in a boot. He put it down in a boot, in a snow boot that was right there in the entryway. While you had this conversation about the grenades and fuses and gunpowder and such, before the conversation? Before that. Yes, did you ultimately get it back? Yeah, I did. When did you get it back? I believe it was when I was asked him or right before I left. I think I asked him where the phone was. I don't remember exactly when I got it back, but before I left, I obviously got it back, yes. All right, so you and Mr. Vernon head to the expedition, yes. And where did you go from there? We headed to Anchorage, down to Anchorage. The expedition was provided by the FBI. Yeah, it was. I rented it in my name in 2 or 3 days before and then turned it over, or Agent Sutherland took, and they wired it all up. For sound, as far as I know for sure. I don't know video. All right, do you have a recording device on your person from the drive down to Anchorage from Fairbanks? Yeah, I did. So who was it, just you and Mr. Vernon? Just the two of us to ride to Anchorage, yeah. During the drive now, do you have any conversations with Mr. Vernon about explosives and sense silencers? Yeah, we did. Are we going to hear from those conversations? Yes, we will, Scrocky. If we could go to 401, play the audio. End of audio, kind of tough to hear, yeah. What's the background noise from driving? Just the road noise? Yeah. And Mr. Vernon mentioned that there's a kid that works for Coleman. That's all they do is build bombs. Yeah, laser-guided rockets. You ever find out who that kid was? No, I didn't. How long was the drive down to Anchorage? It was about 4.5 hours, 5 hours. And on that trip, or while on the road with Mr. Vernon, did you guys also discuss silencers? Yes, we did. And what was the subject of silencers brought up at the meeting during a meeting at the militia convention? Yes, it was. You mentioned Bill Fulton and he ran a business? Yes. Do you recall the name of the business? Drop Zone. And did you or Mr. Vernon have occasion to go to the drop zone and you arrived in Anchorage? Yeah, we did. How we went directly there, yeah. And it was just the two of you and you got out of the car. What did you do? We pulled into the back of the store and went to walk in. Neither one of us, who Bill Fulton was. We had never seen him before, and there was 2 guys standing outside the store at the door smoking a cigarette. They reached smoking a cigarette. Now, did you meet Bill Fulton? Yeah, we did. And was he one of the guys you just mentioned standing outside? Yeah, he was. Did you have a recorded conversation with Mr. Fulton and Mr. Vernon at some point during the first conversation? Yeah, we did. And was your recorder running when you met up with Mr. Fulton at the beginning? Yeah, it was. Okay, Mr. Vernon had conversation with Mr. Fulton with respect to grenades? Yeah, he did. Please tell the jury what happened with respect to what conversations. He walked up to them, walked to the guys standing there. We didn't know who they were and asked we need to talk to Bill Fulton. We're Schaefer's guys down from Fairbanks. He was surprised that Schaefer wasn't there because at the point he didn't know Schaefer wasn't coming. And one of the first things Lonnie said to him was, we're down here to get some grenades. We want some grenades. Did you observe a reaction on behalf of Mr. Fulton with respect to that statement? Yeah, he was surprised and upset. Are we going to hear reference to the initial first meeting and the quickness of asking for grenades through other audio recordings that we have? Yeah. Bill Fulton made the big deal of it later throughout the weekend. In fact, that we didn't even know him. And we show up and the first thing out of our mouths was inquiring about grenades, and he references that several times. Did you have a chance to walk through Mr. Fulton's store? Yeah, we did. And what was for sale? He had everything as far as camping, hunting, military, surplus knives, boots, just kind of general outdoor military, ex-military stuff. Did you see any guns for sale? I don't recall any guns in the store, no. You made mention earlier on that Bill Fulton was a Class 3 dealer, yeah. What do you mean? Explain to the jury what a Class 3 dealer is. A Class 3 dealer is there's a regular firearms dealer that can sell bolt-action semi-automatic weapons. A Class 3 dealer can sell fully automatic stuff and explosives. And you reference Mr. Fulton to Mr. Cox, Mr. Vernon, and Mr. Barney as a Class 3 dealer, yeah. Do you know whether, in fact, Mr. Fulton is a Class 3 dealer? I had heard that from somebody. I don't recall who, but I heard it from somebody. Do you know that, but I don't know who for a fact whether it's true or not? But you don't know for a fact whether it's true or not? Yeah, no, I don't. So you went to Fulton's shop, yes? And Mr. Vernon was with you? Yes, he was, yeah. What were you guys shopping for? Grenades? Anything else? We bought some jackets, a couple of camo jackets, and some trinket stuff, maybe a couple of pairs of gloves, not a whole lot, but jackets. I do remember getting some ex-military multicam jackets. You paid for those, yeah. Did you have occasion to see Mr. Fulton later that evening? Yeah, we did. In what sort of meeting setting? At the bar over the Millennial Hotel. You guys, what were you guys doing at the bar? We had dinner and a couple of beers. During the dinner with Mr. Fulton, did the subject of a machine gun come up? Yeah, it did. From who? From Lonnie? Did you get a recording of that? Yeah, we did, Scrocky. If we could play the exhibit, audio, server, end of audio. Mr. Olson, there's a reference from Mr. Vernon that his wife's into automatic weapons right now and made one. Yeah, do you recall hearing that? Yeah, dude. The transcripts it has inaudible sections. Were you able to make out any other aspect of the conversation with reference to the type of machine gun? Yeah, Mr. Fulton, ask him if it was an MP5. Okay, while you were at the dinner and you heard Bill Fulton's voice on the audio, correct? Yeah, we did. So he was there, you were there, Mr. Vernon was there, and anybody else having dinner with you? No, it was just us. Do you know Aaron Bennett? Yeah, how do you know Aaron Bennett? I met him this weekend at this convention. Do you know where Mr. Bennett that night, while you guys were having dinner? Yeah, towards the end of the dinner, he didn't have a dinner with us, but towards the end of the dinner, him and his militia guys showed up. Had you met with him before? No, I hadn't. Did you know what he was doing for a living? I had heard he's another one that was on the radio, a bunch of up in Fairbanks, so I know who he was, but I never seen him or met him personally. You heard him on the radio? Yes. In general, speaking about what issues? Second Amendment gun issues, just the same kind of issues. Did Mr. Bennett run a business, to your knowledge? Yes, he did. He had a similar store to what Bill Fulton had, a military surplus store and a gun store, and in fact, Bill Fulton sold him a lot of his supplies. Bennett got them from Fulton. What was the name of the store? Bennett store. Yeah, Mr. Bennett store. Far North Tactical. Yeah, do you know if Mr. Bennett had any other kind of side business along with Far North Tactical? Yes, he did. What was that? He did bail enforcer, going out and getting people who jump bail. What's that called? I can't recall what that. Fair enough, I can't tell you. So, okay. But that's the concept of his business. Yeah, the guys who skipped out on bail. So you mentioned that you saw him that night. Were you guys having dinner and he showed up? Yeah. Could you describe Aaron Bennett to the jury? He's a younger guy, relatively speaking. He's probably about 30 years old, I'd say. Very arrogant and cocky, always running his mouth. Did you guys have a chat with him at dinner? Yeah, we did. What did you guys talk about? It turned more into an argument between Lonnie Vernon and Aaron Bennett discussing the whole sovereign citizen AP assembly post issues. Aaron didn't see it that way, didn't believe we in the sovereign citizen way, and so it was just a heated screaming match, basically. Did it seem from what you observed that Mr. Vernon and Mr. Bennett didn't quite get along? No, they did not at all. Lonnie had worked for Aaron Bennett's brother, and so they knew each other from before this meeting. Okay, just didn't mix well? No, not at all. Did you become aware while you were at the militia convention of Mr. Bennett's opinion of Mr. Cox and his militia? Yeah, I did. What was that? Aaron Bennett did not like Schaefer Cox and his militia, his beliefs, and he made no qualms about letting the world know, or anybody who would listen to him, that he did not like him. So this was the dinner conversation. That's where it started, and it continued in the whole weekend. All right, at some point, did Mr. Bennett leave your company? Yeah, he did. With respect to you and Mr. Vernon, did you guys end up going somewhere? Yeah, we did. Where did you go? I had to, while I was in Anchorage every night, I had to meet up with an FBI agent. So the plan, I was going to slip away somehow and meet up with an agent to do a debrief and change out recorders. And at the last minute, Lonnie decided he wanted to go because I told him that I was going to meet with my source for the weapons. And he said, let me stop you there. Affirmative. I'm sorry, your source for the weapons. Which ones are you referring to? The M16s and the other, because I told him that he could get anything, basically anything we wanted. The ones you were referring to before you left Fairbanks with Mr. Cox? Yeah, at the convention right before we left. Okay, so you told Mr. Vernon you're going to go meet your source for these stamped M16s? Yes, and what did he do? He wanted to come along because he wanted to stay around and to be around Aaron and his guys or Bill. Did you take him along with you? Yeah, I did. While you were out, did you have a conversation with Mr. Vernon about fully automatic machine guns? Yeah, we did. Okay, we'll get to that. But before we do, when you were out with Mr. Vernon heading to your source, who were you going to meet with? An FBI agent here in Anchorage, one that I had met with. Patrick Westerhouse is his name. Okay, it wasn't Agent Sutherland. No, Agent Sutherland stayed in Fairbanks. Did you have a place where you were going to meet Agent Westerhouse? I was supposed to call him when I left the motel, give him a call, and he was in the area, so we were gonna go meet up. Okay, how did this meeting occur? How did you manage to meet up with his agent? When Lonnie came along, I obviously couldn't pick up the phone and call the FBI and plan the meeting. I told Lonnie that the guy's place that we're going to meet was a moat or an apartment complex, and I knew of an apartment complex over in the old Seward Highway, and so we drove over to the apartment. I parked the vehicle. I told Lonnie I had to go up myself because the guy didn't know Lonnie, and I wasn't going to bring some strange guy in there and start talking about illegal weapons, so Lonnie was fine with that. He stayed in the truck in the expedition, and I went as soon as I got inside the apartment complex. I called Agent Westerhouse and let him know the situation, and then he came over there and met me there. I went out the back door of the complex. He picked me up, and we drove and did the debrief, and then he came back and dropped me off. While Mr. Vernon, all this time, sitting in the expedition with the motor running, it was warm. You mentioned while you were out with Mr. Vernon, you discussed automatic weapons. Yeah, we did. Is that the reflected in exhibit number 7? Yeah, it is. Excuse me, number 6. Scrocky, audio, play the audio. Mr. Olson, are you familiar with an HK91? Yes, I am. How so? I used to own one. And was this the weapon he's talking about, Mr. Vernon? Going full auto? Yeah, it is. Can you make those weapons full auto? Yes, you can. He's asking for a good battle rifle. He wasn't asking me, he was asking Aaron, referring to a previous time when he asked Aaron for a good battle rifle. Right, and he mentions trying to get it through Aaron Bennett. Yeah, and apparently Mr. Bennett says you'll have to get it on paper, fill out the paperwork. Yeah, because he was a gun dealer. Do you know that for a fact? Was Mr. Bennett a gun dealer? I don't know that for a fact, no. Okay, whatever it was, though, Mr. Vernon indicates you have to buy it on paperwork. Yeah. Have you heard anything about prior to this occasion what Mr. Vernon states that you're buying 6 pieces, putting them together, grinding off numbers, and having their own weapons of mass destruction? Have you heard anything like that before this meeting with Mr. Vernon? He talked about that kind of stuff on the way down. I don't know. I don't recall if it's specifically talking about grinding off numbers off, but there were lots of discussions about bombs and explosives and different things. I'm asking about automatic weapons here. Well, we heard it just, a half hour, 45 minutes before dinner. Okay, the automatic weapon. Let me rephrase that. Let me retry the question. I asked if you had heard anybody talk about assembling machine guns that Mr. Vernon says here from different component parts and grinding off numbers. Have you heard about that before? Oh, no, I hadn't. How long were you with Mr. Vernon? It was probably an hour and 50 minutes. Did you have another conversation with him where he references not being taken by the feds? Yes, we did. Is that reflected in Exhibit 7? Yes, it is. Scrocky, plays Exhibit 7 audio. Mr. Olson, at the beginning of that conversation, Mr. Vernon references the feds and having a pistol on his side. Yes. Do you recall hearing that? Yes, I do. He's mentioning some pants. Do you know what the reference to that would have been? Yes, I forgot that he had a pair of pants when we were over at Bill Fulton's drop zone. I had just bought a jacket, but he had bought a jacket and a pair of pants. Okay, big camo ex-military style pants. And those are the pants he's referring to with his 2 clips? Yes. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Olson, to jump ahead in Exhibit 10, and that's our fault for misnumbering one of our exhibits, specifically 10-4. Okay, you have a conversation with Mr. Fulton and Mr. Vernon in this clip. Yeah, and is there a reference to pineapple grenades in this excerpt? Yeah, there is. Play the audio in the audio. So, Mr. Olson, about what time of night did this conversation happen? This was about 10 o'clock, 10, 11 maybe. There was a lot of discussion about Mr. Vernon hitting up Mr. Fulton for grenades right off the bat. Yeah. There are several mentions of it in there. Yeah, like I said earlier, Bill was upset. So is that what he's referring to? Yeah, it is. Mr. Vernon admits that he did that. Yeah, and that on the audio clip. You guys been drinking that night? We had a few, yes. How much is a few? We had one at dinner, and then after we got back from the meeting with the FBI agent, probably I had 2 or 3 more, and I'm not a real big drinker, so that's all I could handle, but the rest of them were drinking quite a bit. Okay, including Mr. Vernon and Mr. Fulton and Aaron Bennett, and then his guys too. When you had, and they were there for this conversation, but this was up in Bill Fulton's room, and they had been there in and out. This room was just right close, so people were coming in and out, and it was kind of party atmosphere. Do you recall the audio discussion about the FBI agents in the Anchorage or in Fairbanks? Excuse me, yes I do. Mr. Vernon described 2 agents, yes he did. Have you met one of those agents? Yes I have. Actually, have you met both of them? Yes I have. He described one as being what color hair? A redhead. Have you met that agent? Yes, I have. What color hair does he have? Red. Let me turn back to exhibit number 8, specifically A2. Before we get to that, Mr. Olson, yes. This is a conversation that occurs where this was up in Bill Fulton's room again. Okay, at that time, Mr. Fulton, and throughout your exposure to him through this investigation, did you know he was an FBI informant? No, I did not. I had no clue. And you don't know what he knew about you? No, I don't. During this conversation, we're going to see here on Exhibit 8, it's an audio and video, okay? Did you know at the time this was being made, you were being video recorded? No, I did not. Does Mr. Bennett show up during this conversation? Yes, he does. And the conversation concerns, among other things, what topics? Grenade silencers. Let's take it in one step at a time with Mr. Bennett. What's the conversation focus on? I don't recall the specifics of what the conversation was about. I know there was some heated contention. Okay, Mr. Bennett's in the room. Yes, he is. Mr. Fulton, yes. And yourself? Yes. And Mr. Vernon, yes. Scrocky, if we could play Exhibit 8, play the audio in the audio. Okay, Olson, this conversation in Mr. Fulton's hotel room, when did it happen in connection with your drive out of Mr. Vernon to meet with the FBI? It was later that evening after we got back. All right, so Mr. Bennett seemed implied or said that he had many fuses, 160. Grenade fuses? Yeah. Did he mention that he had already given some to Schaefer Cox? Yeah. And why wouldn't Mr. Bennett give you guys any? Because he wanted to keep them for himself, the ones he had, he said. And why is that? He could part with a few. Why is that? Because you could no longer get them. They're illegal to own now, so he could no longer own them and get them. Mr. Vernon states he wants to pick up a few pineapples and make them usable. Yeah. Mr. Fulton referenced on a number of occasions that they had to be careful and be careful tomorrow. What was going to happen on the morrow? That was the convention day when everybody was going to be getting together and having meetings, or a meeting on the other militias that were there. There was some discussion about a 50 caliber, yeah, and the phrase "ma deuce" was used. Do you know what that means? No, I don't. I sure don't. Okay, how about 1,500 meter sniper rifle? Do you know what kind of rifle that would be, a 50 caliber? If I could have you turn to Exhibit 9, is this a further discussion between yourself or Mr. Vernon, Mr. Fulton, with respect to a 50 caliber machine guns? Yes, it is. And other types of machine guns, all other guns, yeah. Scrocky, if I could play the exhibit, audio's played. Okay, if we could all turn to Exhibit 9.3, Mr. Olson, there's further discussion about suppressors, yeah. In the context of meeting that was just played here in court, Mr. Vernon whispers suppressors. Did you hear that? Yeah, I did. What's he referring to? To a silencer or a suppressor on the end of a gun to take away the sound? Did he reference a specific firearm? Yes, he did. What kind of firearm was that? I believe he said a SIG. He was advised by Mr. Fulton to be careful, yeah. In that conversation, he expressed some knowledge as to how to make a silencer, yeah. This is Mr. Vernon, that is? Yeah, he did. Scrocky, if we could play the audio in the audio. If we could have the lights, Madam Clerk, with reference to the video footage that was played, affirmative. You could see yourself in that footage? Yeah, I could. Where were you seated? I was seated off to the right on a couch there. On some occasion, Mr. Vernon's visible. Sometimes he's not. Yeah, in the last segment before Mr. Fulton puts down the tumblers, is that Mr. Vernon that's visible back there? Yeah, it is, over to my right. And the big guy in the t-shirt that you see in the camera most of the time, with his back to the camera, who is that? That was Bill Fulton. With respect to the militia convention, yes, did that occur the next day? Yeah, it did, yeah. And did you attend that? Yeah, we did. Who's the we? Lonnie and I. And if you could tell the jury, in essence, what happened during the convention during the day, was there an agenda of some sort? Yeah, I believe it started at 9 in the morning was the first meeting, so Lonnie and I got there at 9, and there were several other people there, Norm Olson and some of the militias from the other parts of Alaska, and it started out with speaking, and Norm Olson talked. Everybody from the militia gave a little speech. Did Mr. Cox make a speech? He did on the speakerphone. He called in for, to it. And how long did he speak? It was 20 minutes probably. All right. Scrocky, Your Honor, this would be a good spot to break given the next recording that we have. The court, it's that time, ladies and gentlemen. Then when I went home over the weekend, I caught up on my local paper. You can step down, Mr. Olson. I caught up on my local paper. I ran to the article about the jurors being too inquisitive for their own good, and it talked about this age of electronics, and I'm just going to quote something from that article. The advent of cell phones, laptops, e-readers has put the world at the jurors' fingertips, and some internet-addicted people simply can't understand why they can't text, blog, tweet, or post Facebook messages about the trial or search Google to find more information. For young people, such digital activity is as normal as breathing. Well, what the article talked about was the number of cases where the mistrials had been declared because the jurors didn't follow the court's instructions about the stuff. And so I want to pass that on to you, that it is important. And the reason, of course, is that everyone is in a trial has the right to hear all the evidence and to respond to it in whatever way they think is appropriate. That's called the due process of law you've all heard about. And the hallmarks of that are notice of whatever's going on and opportunity to be heard. So if you guys hear of any of you out doing stuff on the internet or looking up or whatever and getting other information, the people in the courtroom don't have an opportunity to respond to that. So we have to get all our information here in this controlled environment in the courtroom and make our decisions on that basis. And so don't discuss the case with each other or anyone else. Don't let anyone talk to you about it. Don't read, view, listen, or any news accounts of these proceedings. Don't do any independent research of any kind during these breaks, and get all your information here in the courtroom and come back tomorrow at 8:30. Is that what time we're starting? Somebody leads me here. So we'll start here at 8:30 and we'll proceed tomorrow on schedule. Okay, thank you. This matter is in recess until tomorrow at 8:30. This court is adjourned subject to call. My goodness. Yeah, controlled environment is absolutely right. And I want you guys to pay real close attention to the discussion of some of these weapons. And just because, you can have your men of the country talk about wearing red high heels and walking into women's bathrooms and being homosexual faggots, or you can have the men of your country talk about weapons and, talking about a weapon and the government how easily these government informants come in and supply the weapons is absolutely horrific, because normally they would be hard to get. But the government is making everything available, and all of a sudden the government informants are everywhere. The government informants are behind every counter, with just a plate load of cookies of illegal stuff, hoping you'll take a cookie. And, you're in a militia, for goodness sake. You're going to want weapons, and you know that your government has been taken over by an illegal foreign coup. The president's birth certificate at this point in time was well known to be a forgery. And so owning illegal weapons is not a conspiracy to murder federal agents. And also, let me say this, locking arms, when they were practicing locking arms and walking down the stairs, that doesn't sound like a plan to murder anybody. It sounds like a plan to defend their friend. Do you understand what I'm saying? It sounds like we know these agents, we know the government is after our friend, we're going to lock arms and we're going to walk him out of here because we're not going to let you take our friend. And the government is illegal. It's run by an illegal foreign coup because Obama's not the president of the United States. And a conspiracy to commit murder is like you're going to go actively, premeditatedly, either seek into someone's home and shoot them in the head, or you're going to wait on a street corner or wait in a place of business where they will frequent, and you'll shoot them when they frequent that place, or you're going to seek them out in a back alley. None of these people weren't doing any of that. Sure, they're American Alaska guys, and they're in a militia, and they're going to talk about weapons. The government making all these illegal weapons available, so easily available, is horrific. And even regardless of their discussions about weapons, that don't make them conspiracy to murder federal agents. Okay, that's what you need to keep in your head as you're hearing this testimony. We'll continue to drudge through this horrific overreach of prosecution corruption. And not only that, all of this audio recordings, they never played the times where Schaefer Cox says, I want to pull a Gandhi, not a Rambo. I need to get out of the state. All of these things that he says, he's not here to aggress anybody. He's not here to commit violence on anybody. He's simply there to defend all, right? That was their credo. Aggress none, defend all.